Chapter 554. The situation was dangerous. The Alcade monarch had returned, and the Alcade dynasty's sword god had appeared. One was the Tianfu war god, and the other was the Central Continent sword god. Both of their swords were unique. Sword intent rose, shaking heaven and earth. Monarchs met monarchs, the peak was unique, and they couldn't coexist. Shocking sword intent soared into the heavens. One move will end today's battle, said Muchanga calmly. Please. The Alcade monarch turned to the side. Xiao Bieli, Zhao Liusu, and the others immediately retreated a few hundred meters, leaving the battlefield to the two of them. Sword 5. Muchanga's fingers swiped across his sword, and a dark sword current revolved around him. Boundless sword intent pierced through the heavens, shaking heaven and earth. This shocking battle began in the mortal realm. Inexorable. The sword's path to the Yellow Springs, the bridge of inexorable. The most terrifying sword slashed open hell, and the surging sword pressure destroyed everything in the surroundings. The ground within 100 miles collapsed and collapsed. Facing the same sword technique, the Alcade monarch's expression became even calmer. He clenched his hand, and an ordinary sword flew over. Sword tribulation endless. 10,000 sword tribulations, endless and endless. The ordinary sword dissipated, transforming into a wave of swords that defied the heavens. Within the endless darkness, it formed its own pattern. A sword that had reached the peak of perfection. A sword that had returned to its original state. This was the first time they met. In an instant, a shocking collision occurred. Dust and sand roared, and everyone outside the battle was forced back several meters. They barely managed to stabilize themselves. After one sword, the bridge of inexorable broke, and the sword tribulation dissipated. The dual moves were actually evenly matched. No victor could be decided. Retreat. When Tianxiang saw this, he didn't hesitate at all, and immediately gave the order to retreat. The Heavenly Sanctum's sovereigns immediately withdrew, no longer fighting. Their figures faded and disappeared from the world. The Alcade monarch didn't stop them. After today's battle, the 5 regions' decline was irreversible. Continuing to fight would only increase the number of casualties. Retreat, said the Alcade monarch as he looked at the purple-robed girl. Zhao Liusu nodded and ordered the sovereigns to retreat. You're disciples of the Western Jade Mountain? Asked the Alcade monarch as he looked at Bai Lingling and Qing Ning. Yes. Bai Lingling nodded. Is your master doing well? The Alcade king's eyes flashed with emotion as he asked. I'm well, master, Bai Lingling replied. The Alcade king didn't ask any more questions. He calmly said, These people are from the heavenly palace star of the outer heavens. I can help you block the sword saint. But do you have a sage who can contend against the celestial phenomenon? Zhao Liusu was silent. After a long time she said, There is one person, but the grudge is too deep. He won't be coming. Who? Alcade king asked. Great Xia Jiming Marquis. Zhao Liusu said honestly. The Alcade king narrowed his eyes and said, He's back. Yes. Zhao Liusu nodded and said, I've been back for a long time. Where is he now? Alcade king asked seriously. I don't know, but if we ask Tianji City for help, we should be able to find it, replied Zhao Liusu. Send someone to invite him as soon as possible, said the Alcade king. It's useless. At this moment Qing Ning, who had been silent all this while, spoke softly. The only person in this world who can change his mind has already passed away. Now it's futile no matter who tries to invite him. Miss knows him? Asked the Alcade king. Family, said Qing Ning calmly. The Alcade king looked at her for a long time and sighed. Send someone to invite him. Say that I'm about to enter the sovereign realm. Invite him to come watch the ceremony. On the heavenly palace star, the various sovereigns had returned. Fan Xinghong, who had been waiting, immediately went up when she saw the celestial phenomenon return. Celestial phenomenon? What was the result of the battle? Our goal has been achieved. Xiao Bieli indifferently said. The first round is over. Next will be the true invasion. In this battle, 2 of the inner realm's human sovereigns had died, and 1 was crippled. It was a pity that they weren't able to defeat the inner realm's sovereigns in one fell swoop. However, through this battle, he was able to determine the bottom line of the inner realm's military strength and the depth of their leader's strategy. This was already enough. The law of war was to know yourself and know your enemy. Heaven's mansion had obtained the result they wanted. That white-robed swordsman would be a big hindrance, but he would only be a hindrance. Sword Saint, you are the heavenly palace's war god. No matter what, you can't lose to anyone, said Xiao Bieli calmly. I understand. Mu Chang'e nodded and replied. Xinghong, inform the various sects to gather their forces. In 15 days, we'll gather at the sacred land. Xiao Bieli looked at the girl beside him and ordered. Yes. Fan Xinghong respectfully accepted the order. After giving the order, Xiao Bieli walked towards the astral soul life sea in the depths of the sacred land. The star venerate hadn't returned yet, so he must have been heavily injured. He needed to find the star venerate's whereabouts as soon as possible. Once the star venerate returned, this battle would be over. Central Continent, Alcade Dynasty, Sunset Divine City. The Alcade King's return shook the dynasty. In the city, the white-robed Alcade King stood quietly and looked into the distance. In 10 days, he would enter the sovereign realm and become a knowing destiny state. It was up to him whether he would come or not. In Tianji City, 7 youths divined day and night, constantly searching for traces of knowing destiny state. Not far away, many human sovereigns stood quietly with complicated looks in their eyes. The 5 regions had already lost the first round of this battle. Apart from the powerful sword venerate, their biggest threat was the heaven minister. Now they were in urgent need of a strategist who was good at commanding troops. The alliance venerate, Dean Bai Lu, and even the Alcade King had expressed that this person would be none other than the eastern region's Jiming Marquis. However, would he come? I saw it. At this moment, one of the youths spoke softly. In the far west of the Western Buddha's homeland. Hearing this, Zhao Liusu immediately ordered. Mu Huazuan, you're the most familiar with the Western Buddha's homeland. Please go back and invite the Jiming Marquis. Remember, don't mention anything about the heavens beyond heavens. Just say that the Alcade King is about to ascend to the position of sovereign and invite him to attend the ceremony. Yes. Mu Huazuan accepted the order and turned around, walking into the Dragon Gate and disappearing. In the far west of the western region, Ning Chun and Bai Jiao walked out of the chaotic fog sea and looked at the changes in the world. The barrier is broken. Bai Yunlian's eyes shone as he said softly, Oh. Ning Chun narrowed his eyes. If that was the case, then the tremor a few days ago was because something had broken the underworld king's barrier. After thinking for a moment, Ning Chun said, Let's go to the demonic wheel sea. Why are we going there? Asked Bai Yunlian. There are some things that can't be found in the inner world. One of us needs to go to the heavens beyond heavens, said Ning Chun calmly. Your demonic body? Asked Bai Yunlian with a frown. Yes. Ning Chun nodded. The demonic body is gloomy and changeable. Do you trust him? Asked Bai Yunlian. I don't trust other things, but when it comes to reviving the ghost girl, there's no doubt about it. Have you decided whether you want to go or him? Asked Bai Yunlian. No. The demonic body swallowed Xian Luo's cultivation body. I don't know if it has completely refined it. If he can't leave the underground palace, then I'll go to the heavens beyond heavens, said Ning Chun calmly. The Jiming Marquis. Just as the two of them were talking, the Dragon Gate appeared in the sky. A powerful aura walked out. It was actually a human sovereign. Bai Yunlian's expression became serious. He secretly gathered his beast essence, ready to attack at any moment. Miss Bai, don't worry. This sovereign shouldn't have any bad intentions. Ning Chun took a step forward and blocked Bai Yunlian's path. The Grand Xiao's knowledge Marquis is truly extraordinary, said Mu Huazuan seriously. You're too polite. May I ask why you've come? Asked Ning Chun with a smile. In 9 days, King Yao Guang will become a human sovereign in the Sunset Divine City. He specially invited you to come and watch the ceremony, said Mu Huazuan. Oh, Senior Yao Guang has returned? Ning Chen's eyes narrowed as he asked. He's been back for a few days, replied Mu Huazuan. Please go back and tell Senior Yao Guang that Knowledge Destiny will definitely be there on time, said Ning Chen calmly. We respectfully await your arrival. Mu Huazuan turned and walked into the Dragon Gate. Be careful of traps, warned Bai Yunlian. Heh. Ning Chen smiled and said, Miss Bai, you've been in the human realm for a long time. You seem to be more familiar with human nature. Is there really a problem? Asked Bai Yinlian. Yes. Ningchen nodded and smiled. That person's attitude is too polite. Sovereigns have their pride. There are only two possibilities for today's situation. First, he has a favor to ask of me in the future. Second, he has bad intentions. Simply put, he's hiding a knife behind a smile. Just like what you're doing now? Asked Bai Yunlian indifferently. Heh. Ningchen smiled again and said, Wrong. It's just a habit of mine. Smiling is always the best way to make people let down their guard. If you wear a mask for too long, you'll need time to take it off. Where are we going now? Asked Bai Yunlian. He didn't want to dwell on this topic anymore. The plan remains the same. First, we'll go to the demonic Wheel Sea, and then the Sunset Divine City. There's no rush, said Ningchen. The two went on their way again. They sped up a lot, and soon disappeared without a trace. Two people appeared in front of the demonic Wheel Sea in the southwest of the central continent. Ningchen looked at the girl beside him and said seriously, Miss Bai, you can stay here. The demonic Wheel Sea is too dangerous. Moreover, the demonic body is unpredictable. I can't guarantee that he won't attack you when we meet. Bai Yunlian frowned and said, Then be careful. Yes. Ningchen nodded and didn't say anything else. He walked towards the demonic Wheel Sea. In an instant, a black light rose and covered the red-clothed man. After a few breaths, no trace of him could be seen anymore. In the depths of the demonic Wheel Sea, in an ancient and majestic palace, a black-clothed and black-haired figure sat cross-legged. Demonic chi surged around him. Drops of blood flowed out from the corners of the demonic body's mouth. His cultivation kept rising. In just a few years, he was already infinitely close to the sovereign realm. Ugh! Suddenly, the demonic body opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood, dyeing the blue stone in front of him red. Demonic tribulation. The demonic body was facing a tribulation. He was not a human, not a monster, not a celestial body. He had condensed millions of murderous auras, and half of Xian Luo's murderous body. However, before reaching the sovereign realm, he couldn't avoid this most terrifying tribulation. Chapter 555. In the underground palace, Shati encountered demonic tribulation. Specks of blood flowed out from the corners of his lips, dyeing his clothes red. In front of the Supreme Being, there was an unavoidable tribulation. Karma was reincarnated, and millions of deaths would eventually be repaid by the knowing destiny state. In the past, in order to save people, knowing destiny, Fan Tingyue combined the moon and light, slaughtering the world. He used the resentment of the masses to suppress the god of hell's art. However, the masses who were sacrificed were not guilty. Fan Lingyue gave up the last of his soul to return to the world. Knowing his destiny, he survived. With the karma of killing on his body, every step he took was arduous. Through thousands of disasters and tribulations, he repaid the lives of all living beings. The dripping blood was the wrath of the heavens for not allowing sinners to move forward. Good and evil had their retribution. So how could the sinner's body be perfect? Demon body. At this moment, a red shadow flashed past and stopped in front of the devil. She turned her palm and condensed her chi. Vigorous phoenix origin continuously flowed into the devil's body to help him suppress his injuries. After a long time, Ning Chun withdrew his hand. He looked at the demonic body in front of him and said with a heavy expression, "You've entered tribulation? It's fine." The demon stood up and lightly said, "Why did you come here? The Nether King realm has been broken, so there is no longer any barrier between the inner realm and outer realm. I came here to discuss with you which one of us will go to outer realm to search for the Jade Lake." Ning Chun replied. "Jade Lake's water? Why?" The demonic body frowned and asked. "I found the undying peach tree in Immortal Palace, but it needs to be watered by the Jade Pool's water to revive it," Ning Chun replied. The demon body's eyes lit up. It said, "Do you have any clues?" "No." Ning Chun shook his head and said, "I've already searched the Western Buddha, the Eastern Domain, the Central Continent, the Southern Wasteland, and the Heaven's Mansion star in the sky beyond heaven. There's no news about the Jade Lake." I haven't searched the northern plains for now. However, if the Jade Lake really exists in this world, then it's most likely in the sky beyond heaven. I need to know the specifics of the situation, said the demon body. Let's go. Let's leave this place first. You're trapped in the demonic tribulation, and your cultivation base is unstable. You might be in danger at any moment. Why don't you leave with me? Ning Chun suggested. Yes. The demonic body nodded in agreement. In the next moment, the two bodies merged, and the demon phoenix became one. Just like 4 years ago, they came together, and 4 years later they left together. Outside the demonic wheel sea, Ning Chun walked out. Bai Yunlian stepped forward and asked, "How was it?" "Let's go to the Sunset Divine City. We'll talk about other things on the way," said Ning Chun. Bai Yunlian nodded and followed him. The Alcade Empire was one of the 3 most prosperous empires in the Central Plains. It was as famous as the Xuanji Empire and the Mizar Empire. The current Alcade Emperor was the nephew of the white-robed Alcade King. Although he wasn't as talented as the Alcade King, he could still be considered a great strategist. In the Sunset Divine City, the Alcade Sword God stood quietly. The 10 days were up. The Alcade Sword God, who had given up his position as paragon for a single person, finally decided to reach the peak after 100 years. When the Sword God proved his Tao, people came from all directions. All the sects in the world knew that once the number 1 person in the Central State 100 years ago ascended to the position of the Supreme, he would be the real powerhouse in the world. On the divine platform, the white-robed man stood quietly. Below him, the sect masters and Taishang of various sects waited patiently. There were even mortal supremes who came to witness the birth of a supreme expert. "Imperial uncle, it's almost time," reminded the Alcade Emperor. "Wait," said the Alcade King calmly. In the distance, Zhao Liusu appeared and looked at the Alcade King on the divine platform. There were many paragons, but it was rare to see a sword god reach the position of paragon. The Alcade King, who hadn't become a paragon, was already the number 1 person in the Central State 100 years ago. Now that he had become a paragon, there was no doubt that he would be invincible on the immortal path. He was also a swordsman, so he shouldn't miss such an opportunity. "Qing Ning, will the Jiming Marquis come?" Not far away, Bai Lingling looked at her junior sister and asked. "Yes," said Qing Ning calmly. He would never go back on his promises. On the other hand, if he didn't want to do something, no one could change it. "If you ask him to stay, will he stay?" asked Bai Lingling again. Qing Ning fell silent. After a long time she said softly, "Whether he will or not, I can't ask him. He has sacrificed too much for this world. Now I won't interfere with his path. He's here." Just as the two of them were talking, Zhao Liusu's eyes narrowed, and she looked to the west. At the same time, the Alcade King on the divine platform also looked over. When he saw the red-clothed figure in the distance, a flash of relief appeared in his eyes. Below the divine platform, the sect leaders and grand elders all had complicated expressions when they saw the red-clothed figure. The past grudges couldn't be put aside so easily. However, in the face of a great enemy, the famous Jiming Marquis of the Great Xia was indeed the best choice. "Greetings, Senior Alcade King." Ning Chun ignored the people from the other sects and directly walked forward and bowed politely. "It's good that you're here. In a moment, I'll try my best to break through to the Paragon realm. Watch carefully and remember as much as you can," said the Alcade King calmly. "Yes." Ning Chun nodded. The Alcade King stepped into the air, step by step. His white robes fluttered in the wind, making him look like a celestial being who had descended to the mortal world. In an instant, the sky that had been clear a moment ago was filled with thunderclouds. Bolts of lightning more than 10 feet thick descended. The Alcade King waved his hand, and a dazzling white sword shot into the sky. When the sword appeared in his hand, the world instantly stopped. "Look carefully. You only have one chance." "Wuji!" The world rumbled as the sword moved. A huge sword wheel appeared behind the Alcade King and turned into a stream of swords that pierced through the sky. It was boundless and limitless as it slashed towards the thunderclouds. The Wuji sword, the Wuji sword. The thunderclouds that fell from the sky were destroyed by the stream of swords, and instantly dissipated into nothingness. In an instant, the stream of swords pierced through the tribulation clouds. The sword intent spread out, and the tribulation clouds dispersed. In the distance, the eyes of the paragons shrank. One sword. In the next moment, the sky shook and an ancient stone gate appeared. The dragon gate that represented the paragons of the paragons appeared in the world again. The Alcade King walked down and looked at the young man not far away. He said calmly, "Did you see it clearly?" "Yes," replied Ningchen. The Alcade King nodded in satisfaction and said, "The first thing is done. Next, it's time to seek justice for what happened back then." As soon as he finished speaking, Alcade King glanced at the sovereigns of the various sects, and the few human sovereigns floating in the distance. His expression turned cold as he said, "Shouldn't you give me an explanation for what happened back then?" The paragons and grand elders looked at each other. After a long time, a grand elder finally walked out and said respectfully, "Alcade King, back then, the scarlet serpent demon caused a calamity. We were just doing justice for the heavens." The Alcade King's gaze turned even colder when he heard that. He said, "Calamity? What kind of calamity? Before you chased after him, did he provoke you? Or rather, did he kill any innocent people?" The paragons fell silent. At this moment, a consecrator of the Xuanji dynasty walked out and said respectfully, "Alcade King, back then, Tianji's instructions clearly pointed out that this person is the source of calamity. The Tianji city's prophecies have never been wrong. This is something that everyone knows. We can't let this demon cause a calamity. Otherwise, once the prophecy comes true, everything will be too late." "Very well." The Alcade King stepped forward and murderous intent exploded from his body. His expression was extremely cold as he said, "Did the Tianji city prophesy that today, I will make all of you stay in Luori Divine City?" Chapter 556. In Luori Divine City, the Alcade realm cultivators were furious. The cultivators of the sects all shut their mouths, not daring to say a word. Amidst the stalemate, the Alcade sword god coldly stared at the great sects of the world. Since he had interfered in this matter, he would definitely want a result. What happened back then wasn't the fault of one sect. If someone needs to suffer, it's Taibai. The chief of Taibai Prefecture showed up and walked towards the young man in red. He said in a hoarse voice, "Jiming Marquis, the last way out was blocked by my people. Today, Taibai Prefecture will pay for what he did back then." He unsheathed his Taoist sword for the first time since the battle on the Guihang Sky Moon Peak. An arm was cut off and blood spurted everywhere. "Taibai." Bailey Jizun stepped forward and helped the chief of Taibai sect up. He sealed the chief's meridians. "Suffer? Qiu Yu and Tuli Jizun are dead. I'll be the one to suffer." Zhao Liusu appeared and waved her hand. 9 wheels appeared and turned into a divine sword, slashing down. At this moment, red robe flashed and appeared in front of him in an instant. With a clang, he clamped the 9-wheeled divine sword between his fingers. "Zhao Liusu, you don't have the right to hurt this body," Ningchen said coldly. Then he looked at the lord of Taibai Mansion who had lost an arm and said indifferently, "Venerable Taibai, since the senior spared your life during the battle at Hong Tian Moon Peak, I won't pursue the matter any further. As for the revenge of the Central Prefecture, you won't be able to taste it. Jiming Marquis, if revenge breeds revenge, will there ever be an end to it? Since the sects want to resolve what happened back then, please give the world a chance," said Mu Huazuan seriously. "The world doesn't owe me anything. You can't represent the world. I don't have time to care about kindness and hatred. I'm only here today because Senior Alcade invited me." "Your hatred is too light," said Ningchen coldly. Hearing this, Mu Huazuan sighed softly and said, "Jiming Marquis, we will not beat around the bush anymore. Now that Tianfu Star's troops are coming to the 5 regions, the human world is in great danger. Tianfu Star has venerable swordsmen and minister of heaven, and we can only stop one of them. Looking at the overall situation is not our strength. For the sake of the human world, we hope that Jiming Marquis can temporarily put aside the grudges of the past and accept the position of military advisor. Jiming Marquis, even if you don't want to help the Central Plains, the war between the Tianfu planet and the 5 regions will not only affect the Central Plains. Once the war starts, the Eastern region, the Divine Prefecture, and even the Great Xia Empire will not be spared. Do you want to watch the human world that you risked your life to protect suffer another catastrophe? Jiming Marquis voice echoed. On the platform, the Alcade King didn't say a word. He looked down calmly. Today, all the decisions would be made by the knowing destiny realm. The human world, ha? Ningchen smiled coldly. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked away. Behind the various sects, Qingning stood quietly. Looking at the approaching figures, a gentle look appeared on her beautiful face. I thought you didn't see me, Qingning said softly. I saw you when I came, Ningchen said with a smile. If you don't want to agree, then don't agree. The human world can't be destroyed. Even if it is, it doesn't matter, Qingning said gently as she stepped forward and brushed the dust off Ningchen's clothes. Okay, Ningchen smiled and said, Sister Qingning, where have you been all these years? Xiao Mountain, Qingning said. Buddhism? Ningchen's eyelids twitched. Sister Qingning, are you going to shave your head and become a monk? Qingning's hand paused. The gentleness on her face disappeared. She raised her hand and hit Ningchen's head. What are you thinking? Who said that you have to shave your head and become a monk if you want to cultivate in Buddhism? Ningchen smiled embarrassedly and said, That's true. It seems that the Buddhists I met recently haven't shaved their heads. Then Ningchen looked at the Alcade King on the platform and said, Senior Alcade, Sister Qingning, and I have something to talk about. We won't disturb you. Thank you for teaching me the sword. Okay, go ahead. The Alcade King nodded and didn't stop him. Qingning also looked at Bai Lingling and said, Senior sister, I will come back to look for you later. Go ahead. Bai Lingling nodded. Under the gazes of the various sects, Ning Chun and Qingning left. From the beginning to the end, they didn't look at the various sections. Under the platform, the pale-faced Tai Bai Palace chief sighed deeply. He waved his hand and summoned the dragon gate. Then he walked in and left silently. Tai Bai. Sovereign Bailey raised his hand. He didn't have time to follow. He glanced at the white-robed man on the platform and said politely, Alcade King, congratulations on becoming a supremacy. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Please, the Alcade King said calmly. Sovereign Bailey nodded, took a step forward and disappeared. Knowing destiny, and the 2 sovereigns left. Zhao Liusu was silent. After a moment, her figure faded, and she also left the divine city. Xuanwu, see the guests out, the Alcade King said. Yes, Sovereign Alcade replied. Then he looked at the various sects in Zhongzhou and said calmly, Everyone, the ceremony is over. Please go back. The sect masters and grand elders couldn't stay any longer. They looked at each other and left with different thoughts in their minds. Sovereign Alcade looked at the person beside him and asked in confusion, Uncle, why do the sects in Zhongzhou have to make the Marquis Jiming their military advisor? There are so many wise people in the world. Do they have to make him their military advisor? The position of a military advisor requires you to look at the overall situation and calculate the details. The tolerance required is not something ordinary people can achieve. Knowledge, experience, strength, wisdom, and methods all determine the height of a wise person. There is no lack of wise people in the world, but only the knowing destiny state can compete with the heaven minister, the Alcade King said calmly. The existence of the knowing destiny state was an anomaly. It was rare to see someone with such strength and wisdom at the same time. Just like there was only one heaven minister in Tianfu, there was only one knowing destiny state in the 5 regions. The Zhao family's sovereign had fused with the soul of 9 generations of sovereigns. Although he had lost his nature, he hadn't lost his most basic rationality. He could see the current situation clearly. If they couldn't invite the knowing destiny state, the 5 regions would be extremely passive in this war. Outside Luori Divine City, a red and a green figure walked side by side. After the death of their eldest grandson, the 2 of them were the only family members in each other's life. This precious warmth made them reluctant to part with it. Did you go back to see the Empress? Asked Qingning softly. Yes. Ningchen nodded. I went back not long ago. I'm sorry I couldn't appear by your side when you were in danger, said Qing Ning apologetically. It's all in the past, said Ning Chun with a smile. How is the matter of the ghost girl? I asked Master for you. If you want to bring someone back from the dead, it's impossible to do it with the power of the human world. You have to find power that surpasses the limits of the human world, said Qing Ning. The West Jade Lord is indeed a wise person. I took many detours before I realized that I might have to leave the 5 regions soon and go to sky beyond heaven, said Ningchen emotionally. Do you have a way? Asked Qing Ning in surprise. Yes. I found the immortal peach tree in the immortal palace. Now, I need to find the jade pool's water to revive it, said Ningchen honestly. Tell me about your experiences over the past few years, said Qing Ning with a sigh. Yes. Ningchen nodded and slowly told her everything he had experienced over the past few years. She was his only family in this world, so there was no need to hide anything from her. The two of them walked quietly from day to night. Their chaotic hearts were temporarily at peace. The story was very long, and it seemed like it wouldn't be finished even after several days. Qing Ning listened quietly. She didn't interrupt him, nor did she show any impatience. By the time he finished telling the story, the moon was hanging high in the sky, a cold wind blew, and it was late autumn. When Qing Ning finished listening to the story, she stopped and looked at the young man beside her. A smile appeared on her gentle face. Do whatever you want. You don't need to be bound by the matters of the mortal world. Back then, she and the Empress had brought him to Weiyang Palace, because the Empress had been kind. She had been afraid that Ning Chun would cause trouble when he had just entered the palace and lose his life. She had never thought that such a hot-headed and reckless youth would eventually grow up to become the strongest Marquis in the Grand Xia, shouldering the rise and fall of the entire dynasty. She and the Empress had bound him for over 10 years. Now they couldn't let the matters of the mortal world drag him down. As the cold night deepened, Qing Ning left. In the west of Sunset Divine City, Hongyi stood silently thinking. Are you worried? Asked a black-robed figure coldly. Demonic qi gathered, and a black-robed figure appeared. As long as they're still in this world, I can't just leave them be, said Ningchen with a sigh. What happens in the mortal world has nothing to do with me. However, the matter of the ghost woman can't be delayed. If you don't go, then give me your cultivation body. After suppressing the demonic tribulation, I'll go to sky beyond heaven myself, said the devil body indifferently. Ningchen was silent. After a long time he said, How much of your cultivation body can you use? I'm not sure. At my strongest, I can use 100%. At my weakest, for example, right now, I can use less than 30%, replied the devil body. I'll go to sky beyond heaven. As soon as he finished speaking, Ningchen gazed at the devil by his side and said, However, I'm going alone. You'll only be a burden to me if you follow me. You have to stay behind to overcome the devil tribulation. Moreover, you'll be the safest here. Devils are not tolerated by the world. How can I be safe? Snorted the devil body. Devils are not tolerated by the world, but the military counselor of the 5 regions can. If you replace me, your identity as a military counselor will be your greatest cover, said Ningchen. Military counselor? Scheming is your forte, not something a devil can do. Also, the various sects in the world aren't fools. How could they not recognize it? Ningchen waved his hand, and a red robe and a white fan appeared. He handed them to the devil body and said seriously, You and I are one. Your understanding of me is unparalleled. As long as you want to imitate me, no one will be able to see through it. In addition, I'll give you a portion of the phoenix origin to help you suppress the demonic qi in your body. However, you must remember that unless it's absolutely necessary, don't use force. Otherwise, once the phoenix origin's power is exhausted, your identity will be exposed. Ningchen paused for a moment, then waved his hand, summoning the green coffin and the datura flower seed. He continued, I've already given you the method to use the Yellow Spring's forbidden art. Take the immortal slaying sword and the datura flower seed. Right now, you need them more than I do. As for the responsibility of being a military counselor, although the devil body isn't good at wisdom, it's only relatively speaking. In this world, other than me, who would dare say that they can definitely defeat you. Chapter 557. Devil Body. You have to remember that a person's heart is hard to predict. It can change at any time. Right now, the various sects need help from knowing destiny, so knowing destiny's identity is the best cover. However, the war between the 5 regions and the heavenly mansion will eventually end. At that time, people will remember the grudges that were once forgotten. A person's heart can be trusted, but it can't be completely trusted. When you judge, emotion, trust, sincerity, and profit are all indispensable. Finally, and also the most important thing, knowing destiny's fate isn't just yours. No matter what, you have to leave a way out for yourself. As long as you can survive, you don't care what price you have to pay. The phoenix body's words echoed in the night sky. After saying all the things that needed to be said, the phoenix soared into the sky. The black robes in the night changed into red robes and replaced the phoenix body's killing body in the 5 regions. Then it turned and left. Before the devil tribulation, he had to do his best to protect himself. This identity would bring him quite a bit of convenience. However, he had to adapt quickly to avoid being seen through. Imitating someone else wasn't easy, even if that other person was the person he understood the most about. On the heavenly mansion planet, the various sects experts had gathered. They were all at the Xiantian level. In order to obtain more resources and more authority for the heavenly mansion, the celestial minister had given his orders. After the probing battle, he would officially send his troops to the inner realm. Sword Sovereign, let's go, said Xiaobieli. Yes. Mu Chang'e responded softly, and stepped into the array with his sword on his back. In the next moment, the two of them vanished from the heavenly mansion. In the inner realm, above the central continent, the void trembled and 2 figures appeared. Soon thousands of innate realm cultivators walked out one after another. They formed a black cloud that covered the sky. The heavenly mansion's army had officially appeared in the 5 regions. Half a day later, 10 cities near the sea on the eastern side of the Central Plains were quickly occupied by the heavenly mansion's army. Most of the commoners were expelled, and less than 20% remained. Anyone who resisted was slaughtered. The cruelty of war was evident on the first day. Celestial Minister, isn't this going too far? Venerable Dong Sun sighed as he looked at the rivers of blood. In war, blood will flow at any time. Educating the commoners requires time. And what we lack the most is time. Xiaobieli calmly said. Although that's the case, won't that cause the commoners to reject the heavenly palaces even more? After all, we'll have to move them here in the end, said Venerable Dongshuan worriedly. Those who aren't of our race have different hearts. This is not only true for the heavenly palace, but also for the inner realm. Whether or not we expel these commoners, the 5 regions' rejection of the heavenly palace won't change, but, at this point, Xiaobieli paused for a moment, and then his tone turned cold. So long as we obtain victory in this war, then the authority to enlighten the world will be in the hands of the heaven's sanctum. The hearts of the people will always be the easiest thing to placate and change. There was another thing that Xiaobieli didn't say. Apart from eliminating future troubles, expelling these commoners had another important effect that would soon be revealed. Heavenly phase. At this moment, Honorable Tiandu walked over and bowed respectfully. How is it? Have any human exalts appeared? Xiaobieli asked calmly. Not yet, Tiandu replied. Too slow. Since they're not coming, order the army to continue occupying the surrounding areas, said Xiaobieli coldly. Yes, Honored Tiandu respectfully replied. Xiaobieli's gaze grew colder as he watched them leave. If the Central Plains leader was as ordinary as last time, then the Heavenly Palace would gladly accept the 5 regions. North of the Central Region, the headquarters of the 5 Territory Alliance, Jingfeng City. Zhao Liusu frowned as she listened to the battle reports that were being sent back. What a fast speed. That Tian Xiang was attacking so crazily. Did he not think about whether they could defend themselves? This was the inner realm, and the Heavenly Palace's army had penetrated deep into the inner realm. The front line was too high, and their limited forces would be scattered. Alliance Sovereign, is it time to counterattack? asked Mu Huazuan respectfully. Zhao Liusu thought for a moment and nodded. Mu Huazuan, Bailey Zun, each of you lead an army to take back the occupied cities. Yes. The two human exalts accepted the order and turned to leave. In the eastern part of the Central Plains, the battle between the two sides had finally begun. Mu Huazuan and Bailey Zun appeared at the back of the army and commanded the allied forces to take back the occupied cities. However, the battle wasn't as intense as they had imagined. The cities that the Heavenly Palace had occupied didn't have too many soldiers guarding them. After taking over the cities and driving away the commoners, they continued to move towards the surrounding cities. Every time the various sects took back a city, Heaven's Abode would give up a city and then take back another one. Other than the first 10 cities that they took back, which were guarded by a large number of soldiers and supreme beings, the rest of the cities were easily taken back. The reports were sent back to Vanguard City. Zhao Liusu frowned. She couldn't see what the Heavenly Phase expert from the Heavenly Palace planet was planning. At the same time, the Alcade monarch was cultivating his sword in the Sunset Divine City. He hadn't left since he stepped into the sovereign realm. The sword god had been cultivating his sword for many days, waiting for the Heavenly Palace sword sovereign to make his move. This battle would eventually return to the battle between the top experts. Only then would the true decisive battle begin. In the eastern part of the Central Plains, the battle for the cities had gone on for many days. The cities that the Heavenly Palace had occupied were taken back continuously, but they didn't stop attacking. In the 10 cities, the Heavenly Palace's soldiers were continuously sent over from the Heavenly Palace planet. The Heavenly Phase expert and the Heavenly Sword Sovereign protected the city with all their might to prevent any accidents from happening. Relatively speaking, the various powers of the Central Plains had also sent in more and more soldiers. Almost all the martial artists above the Khanate realm had gathered and were rushing to the eastern battlefield. At the same time, a red-robed figure stood quietly on a mountain peak 1,000 miles away from the battlefield. He coldly watched the development of the battle, as the mockery in his eyes grew thicker and thicker. Stupid. After so many days of fighting, the various powers of the Central Plains were still thinking about the gains and losses of the cities. If this continued, the Central Plains would be defeated before the decisive battle even began. Behind him, Bai Yunlian looked at the figure in front of her. Confusion flashed through her eyes. She didn't know why, but she felt that the person in front of her was slightly different from before. However, when she sensed it carefully, she couldn't tell what was wrong. "Miss Bai, let's go to Vanguard City and help out our comrades." After a long time, Ningchen turned and walked forward with a smile. Yes. Bai Yunlian suppressed the doubts in his heart and stepped forward to catch up. Red light gathered in front of the majestic Vanguard City, and a figure walked out. The two half-step sovereigns in front of the city were startled when they saw this person. When they came back to their senses, they immediately bowed. At the same time, Zhao Liusu stood up and said in a serious tone, "He's here." Chapter 558. In Peak Competition City, Knowing Destiny appeared with Zhao Liusu at the head. The sovereigns of the various sects personally welcomed him. The War of the Five Regions forced the two sides to temporarily put aside their grudges and work together against the enemy. "Greetings, advisor." The sovereigns in the hall all bowed. Beside the Alliance Master's seat, there was a seat made of purple gold. A red-robed man sat high up, holding a white fan. He had a gentle and harmless smile on his face. "Sovereigns, there's no need to be so courteous," said Ningchen. "Advisor, you are able to put aside your personal enmity and disregard the past to help the five regions fight against the foreign enemies. Such breadth of mind is truly admirable." Venerable Hong Lu stood up and spoke to ease the somewhat tense atmosphere. Ningchen smiled and said, "Let's not talk about the misunderstandings of the past anymore. Right now, the most important thing is to focus on dealing with Heaven's sanctum. The battle reports from the past few days are here. Advisor, please take a look," said Zhao Liusu as she handed over the battle reports. Ningchen took the reports and carefully read them one by one. He didn't say a word. The sovereigns were waiting in front of him. The Knowing Destiny Marquis was only a legend, Until it was proven, they wouldn't be completely convinced. After a long time, Ningchen put down the reports and calmly asked, "Why are you in such a hurry to take back these cities?" Zhao Liusu frowned and said, "Why? Shouldn't we take back the cities that Heaven's Sanctum seized as soon as possible? Are there any important resources around these cities?" Ningchen asked again. "Other than a few iron mines, there aren't any special resources," said Zhao Liusu. "The Heaven's Sanctum's army has just arrived in the central province. 10 cities are enough for them to use as a base. Zhao Liusu, tell me, how many mistakes have you made in the past few days?" asked Ningchen calmly. Zhao Liusu thought for a moment and said, 2. First, I wasn't prepared enough for Heaven's Sanctum's arrival. Second, it was difficult to find out the enemy's goal. 10, said Ningchen slowly. Oh. Zhao Liusu was startled and couldn't react for a moment. Sovereign Xianjun couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Advisor, even if you have some old grudges with the Alliance Sovereign, there's no need to exaggerate his mistakes." Ningchen looked at Xianjun Zun in front of him and said indifferently, "I've already said that the past is the past. We're just discussing this matter. Then tell me, what are the 10 mistakes that Alliance Venerables made?" Xianjun Venerables asked in disbelief. Firstly, they weren't prepared for the appearance of the Heaven's Sanctum's army. Of the 4 sides of the central region, the Zhao clan and the Xuanji dynasty are in the north. Even the allied army's main camp is here. Since the Heaven's Sanctum has just arrived, they don't have enough troops. They definitely won't choose this place as their base of operations. Furthermore, as for the other 3 sides, the south borders the southern tomb, while the west borders the guardian Buddhist land. Only the east side of the sea region, is the divine prefecture of the eastern region, which has just experienced the great tribulation of the underworld king. They don't have many experts, so the threat is the smallest. Therefore, it's not difficult to guess where the Heaven's Sanctum's army will arrive. The east side of the central region is the most convenient place to attack, and the easiest place to retreat. Secondly, we weren't able to send troops in time. Even if we missed the best time to ambush them, it wouldn't have been too late to send out troops to stop them when the Heaven's Sanctum arrived. Being cautious and hesitant will only make things worse. This is the inner realm. Whether it's the right time, the right place, or the right people, everything is on our side. This is also the time when the Heaven's Sanctum is least likely to set up a trap. What's the point of waiting and watching? Thirdly, there are no priorities. There are only 2 reasons why the Heaven's Sanctum's army is constantly attacking the cities. One is to attract the attention of the inner realm. They need time. Aside from stabilizing their rear lines, their biggest goal is to transfer troops from the Heaven's Sanctum. During this time, the Allied army didn't attack even once. Fourthly, the responsibility of not investigating. After the Heaven's Sanctum occupies a city, the first thing they do is expel the civilians. Do you really think this is just to make it easier to govern? Right now, the civilians hate the Heaven's Sanctum the most. The headquarters of the various religions are here, and these refugees will head north sooner or later. 1 city of refugees is easy to arrange, and 2 cities won't be a problem. But what about 10 cities? What about 20 cities? When millions of refugees head north, and you can't deal with them, and can only watch them die, will the people they hate the most still be the Heaven's Sanctum? Fifthly, it's an unclear mistake. What's the point of taking back the occupied cities? The war has already begun, so there's no need to talk about morality. Since these places have already been lost, there's no need to waste troops and energy to take them back. If the Heaven's Sanctum is willing to split up their forces, then let them. What we need to do is not lose new cities, and increase the number of refugees. Sixthly, advisor, there's no need to say any more. On the seat of honor, Zhao Liusu stopped the former from continuing. Her pretty face was already pale. She stood up, walked forward and respectfully bowed. Military advisor, please tell us what to do next. I need military power, absolute military power, said Ningchen coldly. Zhao Liusu was silent for a moment. A moment later, she took out half a purple jade talisman and handed it over. This talisman contains a trace of the soul imprint of all the chosen in the alliance. Although it has been split in two, no one knows where their soul imprint is. As long as you have this talisman, you have the power to mobilize the Central Plains army. Ning Chun took the jade talisman and scanned it with his spiritual sense. Sure enough, he felt several powerful auras. A trace of a soul was very important even to a chosen. Once it was destroyed, although they wouldn't die, they would be heavily injured. Ning Chun raised his head and looked at the experts standing at the peak of the human world. He said calmly, "Everyone, the war officially begins now. Exalt Li. Immediately send someone to inform Bai Li and Mu Hua that they don't need to fight for the lost cities anymore. They need to focus on cooperating with Exalt Chi Wei to stop the Heavenly Province's army. Exalt Hong Lu. Immediately arrange for the refugees. Remember, be careful of those who spread rumors and take advantage of the situation. Once discovered, kill without mercy." Speaking up to here, Ning Chun paused for a moment. He glanced at the three exalts on the right and continued. "Also, exalt Xianzhen, exalt Yusheng, and exalt Qingyu. The three of you will come with me to explore the 10 cities behind the Heavenly Province and find out how they're mobilizing their troops from the Heavenly Province planet." Yes. The 5 exalts respectfully accepted the order. "Is there anything you need me to do?" asked Zhao Liusu on the side. Ning Chun looked away and said calmly, "There is. Alliance Exalt's mission is to protect competitive Peak City. I don't want to return to find that this place has already become a place where the Heavenly Province has ambushed their troops." Zhao Liusu nodded and said, "Don't worry. As long as I'm alive, no one from the Heavenly Province planet will be able to step into this city. One last thing. That sword exalt is quite troublesome. Tell Senior Yaoguang to be prepared to act at any time," reminded Ning Chun. "Don't worry about that. The Yaoguang King has already been cultivating his sword for several days. As long as the Heavenly Province sword exalt appears, he will immediately act to stop him," said Zhao Liusu. Hearing that, Ning Chun nodded. This was the most unpredictable part. No matter how brilliant a plan was, it still needed a powerful force to support it. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. Absolute power was always the most effective way to decide the outcome of a war. Up until now, the Heavenly Province star exalt that he had been wary of still hadn't appeared. There was an 80 to 90% chance that he was heavily injured while destroying the Netherworld King's formation. The most important thing was that this war that seemed to be evenly matched had to end before the Heavenly Province star exalt appeared. Otherwise, the 5 regions would be in an extremely disadvantageous position. In the eastern part of the Central Plains, Xiao Bieli stood silently in one of the 10 cities. At this moment, a black-robed Xiantian expert appeared in the distance. He half-knelt and said, "Minister of Heaven, the inner world sects have changed their direction." "Oh, where did they go?" A strange light flashed in Xiao Bieli's eyes. "The 2 sovereigns, Bai Li and Mu Hua, who were in charge of taking back the cities we occupied, have already led their troops to the southwest. Their target should be Senior Chi Wei," replied the kneeling Xiantian expert. "Yes, I understand. You can leave for now," said Xiao Bieli calmly. "Yes." The black-robed Xiantian expert accepted the order and vanished in the blink of an eye. Xiao Bieli glanced back at the formations in the city, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Is it a coincidence? Or has the leader of the inner realm finally become enlightened? If it's the latter, then this war probably won't be as boring as it was before. The sun was setting in the west, and a crescent moon was slowly rising in the eastern sky. A cold wind blew across the land that had been eroded by war. Everywhere was desolate and bleak. As the night deepened, 4 figures appeared 100 miles away from the 10 cities. Their auras were completely concealed. The person in the lead was wearing red robes that looked like they were dyed in blood under the night sky. Xianzhen, Yusheng, Qingyu. The 3 sovereigns will each investigate the 3 cities. In 2 hours, gather here. Remember, if you're exposed, don't worry about anything. Immediately retreat, said Ning Chun. Understood. The 3 venerables nodded in response, and then their figures flashed as they headed off in different directions. Once the 3 sovereigns left, Ning Chun looked at the city in front of him and walked over. Of the 10 cities, the Minister of Heaven was most likely to be in this city. Hopefully his guess was correct. Heavenly Huan City was covered in dense formations. Lines of formation runes rose into the air, and every part of it was shining with a strange light. Within the formation, there were 4 sovereigns using their bodies as the foundation to maintain the formation's operation. Outside the formation, the Sword Sovereign and the Minister of Heaven were silently standing. Ever since they had arrived at the Heavenly Palace, they hadn't taken half a step away. The forbidden area was heavily guarded, and no one was allowed to approach. Not even the people of the Heavenly Palace were allowed to approach. Minister of Heaven. At this moment, a black-robed Xiantian expert appeared 300 meters away and knelt. "What is it?" asked Xiaobieli. "Our scouts have reported that an unfamiliar red-robed youth appeared in Peak Competition City today. He seems to have attracted the attention of the sovereigns of the inner world," reported the black-robed Xiantian expert. "Oh!" Xiaobieli's eyes lit up when he heard this. "Investigate again." Chapter 559. Red stood outside Tianheng City. Tian Xiang stood quietly in Tianheng City. More than a decade ago, Knowing Destiny and military counselor confronted each other. Now the real battle between the wise men had reappeared in the world. There were very few people in the world who could bear the title of a wise man. More than 10 years ago, Fan Lingyue ruled the world and single-handedly brought the northern Ming imperial court to its peak. He raised the definition of a wise man to an unprecedented height. Since then, the divine prefecture could be called a wise man. That was Fan Lingyue's era. He was like the only moon in the sky, shining on the world. No one could hide his brilliance. Even the 5 most powerful innate masters were overshadowed by him. Later, Luoyue of Luoyue City, Zhong Qianqiu, and Xianji appeared one after another. They seemed to have inherited the title of wise man. However, Knowing Destiny was very clear that after Fan Lingyue, there were no more wise men in the divine land. Even if Qianqiu and Xuanji weren't bad, at most they weren't bad. The reason why Grand Xia was so tired of dealing with them was because before that, Fan Lingyue had almost crippled the invincible Grand Xia. The biggest difficulty of the chaos of the 4 extremes was the timing of its appearance. The real threat of the Eternal Night sect was the hierarch of the Eternal Night, who seemed to be the most powerful man in the world. In that era, the only person who could fight Mu Bai to a standstill without using his own weapon was the Eternal Night sect master. At that time, Knowing Destiny only took 2 strikes from Mu Bai. After that, Yama, who came to the world, had nothing to do with the word wise man at all. He had absolute power, and didn't need any wisdom to serve as a foil. In just 10 years, Knowing Destiny's opponent went from the most wise man in the world, Fan Lingyue, to Yama, who had the power to destroy everything. He had seen the peak. Now that he experienced the same thing again, he gradually calmed down. After Heaven's sanctum descended, Ningchen had seen everything the Celestial had done. Without a doubt, this person was an extraordinary opponent. Every step he took was impeccable, far surpassing the likes of Zhong Qianqiu and Xianji. If Fan Lingyue looked at the world and found something strange, then this Tian Xiang was careful and didn't leave any flaws. The Minister of the Land of Abundance was not an empty title. Before that Star Venerable appeared, this man was undoubtedly the biggest enemy of the 5 regions. Outside Heavenly Eternal City, Ningchen quietly looked at the city in front of him. He didn't take a single step in for 2 whole hours. In Eternal Heaven City, Xiaobieli was deep in thought. The red-robed young man reminded him of White Jade Jing, a young swordsman whom he admired. However, it was unlikely that these 2 people were the same person. When Bai Yujing left the Heavens Mansion, the Underworld King's boundary hadn't been broken yet. The people of the inner realm couldn't leave, and the people of the outer realm couldn't enter. 2 hours later, 50 kilometers away from Eternal Heaven City, Xianzhen, Yusheng, and Qingyu returned. At this moment, a calm voice sounded. 3 sovereigns, please come to Eternal Heaven City. When the 3 venerables heard this, they looked at each other. Suppressing the shock in their hearts, they quickly rushed forward. Outside the city, Ningchen turned around to glance at the 3 of them and said, "How is it? Did you discover anything?" Reporting to the military advisor, "We didn't find anything special," said the Xuanzhen Reverend. Military advisor. There's only one city left that we haven't explored, said the Yusheng Reverend. Ningchen nodded. Looking at the city, he said, there's no need to explore it. The Heavens Mansion's army source is in this city. Now it's up to you to destroy it. The three of them were surprised. Reverend Qing Yu cautiously asked, military advisor, is that sword sovereign in this city? He is, said Ningchen calmly. Military advisor, with that person around, we won't be able to charge through, said the Xuanzhen Reverend. If the sword sovereign takes action, the Alcade King will also take action, said Ning Chun indifferently. The three sovereigns were silent. They had all seen how terrifying the sword sovereign was. The Alcade King was far away in Sunset Divine City. Whether or not he could stop the sword sovereign was unknown. This was undoubtedly a gamble with their lives. Whether you go or not is up to you. I can only tell you that after tonight, it'll be very difficult for you to have another chance, said Ning Chen casually. Any brilliant plan required a powerful force to support it. If the three sovereigns couldn't make up their minds to enter the city, then tonight's operation would be meaningless. It was impossible for there to be no Heaven's Mansion spies in competitive Peak City. Once Tian Xiang learned that he was the military advisor of the 5 regions, there would be no chance for him to destroy the city. Of course, after tonight, he wouldn't use those who didn't listen to him anymore. Military advisor, let's think about it at length. If the Alcade King can't stop the Heaven's Mansion sword sovereign, not just the three of us, but even you will be in danger. The three of them hesitated for a moment before Reverend Yusheng stepped forward. Ning Chen smiled faintly and didn't say anything more. He turned and walked north. He didn't have a phoenix body, and he had no feelings for this world. He had already given them a chance, but they didn't cherish it. Then he would take more lives to make up for it. The three sovereigns followed and left together. Ning Chen and the three sovereigns returned to competitive Peak City. Zhao Liusu immediately went up to greet them. Military advisor, how was it? Did you find the source of the Heaven's Mansion's army? Yes. Ning Chen nodded. Did you destroy it? Asked Zhao Liusu. No, the city is guarded by the sword sovereign. The three sovereigns were worried about my safety, so they suggested we think about it at length, smiled Ning Chen. Zhao Liusu was stunned when she heard this. And then she swiftly understood what was going on. She glanced at Xianzhen, Yusheng, and Qingyu before she said in a low voice, the three of you leave first. I have something to discuss with the military advisor. Yes. The three of them bowed and left. After the three sovereigns left, only Zhao Liusu and Ning Chun remained in the hall. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Military advisor, you clearly know the importance of this trip. Why didn't you give the order for the three of them to attack the city? Asked Zhao Liusu. It's rare that the alliance sovereigns don't know what it means to agree on the surface, but oppose on the surface. They're already afraid. Once the sword sovereign attacks, do you think they'll resist or run? Smiled Ning Chen. Zhao Liusu clenched her fists, unable to suppress the fury in her heart. She knew that these sovereigns weren't easy to control, which was why she had suggested using the Jade Talisman to control them. She hadn't expected that it would still be so difficult to command them at such a crucial moment. Is there any other way? Asked Zhao Liusu, raising her head. Ning Chen's lips curved. My mission is just to mobilize the troops to fight against the Heavenly Sanctum's leader. As for how to control them, that's not my responsibility. Alliance Sovereign, you should think about it yourself. Zhao Liusu's heart skipped a beat. She clenched her fists so hard that they turned pale. Taking a deep breath, she said, is there a chance to salvage the situation tomorrow night? If not, how much of an impact will it have on this battle? The opportunity has already been lost, and there's no way to salvage it. As for the impact, Ning Chen smiled. If we make a mistake, we'll just have to use lives to make up for it. As for how many lives will be needed, you'll know in the future. After waiting for an entire night, I'm sure you're tired. I won't disturb you any longer. I'll take my leave first. Ning Chen didn't stay any longer. He turned and walked out of the hall. Bang! Ning Chen walked out of the main hall. Inside the hall, the sound of something being smashed into pieces could be heard. The entire main hall shook violently. Such a shocking commotion was enough to show how furious the person inside was. In front of the hall, the two guards trembled. Looking at the red-clothed person walking out, they lowered their heads. They didn't understand what the military advisor had said to the Alliance sovereign to make the Alliance sovereign so angry. Ning Chen sneered. He didn't care when this battle would end. The only reason he agreed to stay was because he needed this identity as a cover. The Phoenix body's warning was right. The human heart could be trusted, but it could never be trusted completely. The three sovereigns' temporary retreat would make the entire central continent pay the most painful price. Once the war began, there weren't many opportunities for both sides. Wasting one was one less. Originally, the central continent had the geographical advantage. As long as they destroyed the heavenly sanctum source of soldiers, the inner realm would have the absolute advantage for a short period of time. Even if they didn't use any schemes, they would be able to deal a heavy blow to the heavenly sanctum. However, from today onward, they would no longer have this advantage. Ning Chen. Just as Ning Chen walked 100 steps out of the hall, Qing Ning, who had rushed over after hearing the news, called out to him. Qing Ning. Sister Qing Ning. Ning Chen regained his senses. He paused for a moment, and then called out in an unaccustomed manner. When Qing Ning heard this, her beautiful eyes narrowed and she said, "Follow me." Hearing this, Ning Chen stepped forward and followed. After walking for a quarter of an hour, Qing Ning walked into a quiet side hall. Then she stopped. Ning Chen also stopped. His eyes were filled with confusion. Qing Ning turned around and said, "The current you is the demonic body he spoke of, right?" Ning Chen's heart trembled. How could this be? When had he revealed a flaw? There's nothing to be surprised about. Qing Ning walked up and closed the door. She softly said, "I picked you up and brought you into the palace. I also watched you grow up step by step. Others might not be able to see your change, but it's impossible to hide it from me." Ning Chen's body stiffened. After a long time, he gradually relaxed. "You're not nervous anymore?" Qing Ning smiled and walked up to hit his head. "Whether you're a human or a demon, you Qing Ning will always be your sister Qing Ning. There's no difference. Do you remember?" Ning Chen stiffly nodded. "When the sun rises, come with me to the sword-casting manor. I heard you injured the sword-casting manor. This matter can't be dragged on. The sword-casting manor has always been upright and has never offended you. Since you injured him, then you have to bear the consequences of your mistake." Qing Ning calmly said. Now that the Empress wasn't here, only she could take care of him. A mistake was a mistake. Whether it was the Phoenix body or the demon body, they both had to bear the consequences of their actions. "Yes." Ning Chen nodded once more and softly replied. Eternal Heaven City. When the first rays of the morning sun shone down, a black-clothed Xiantian cultivator appeared and respectfully said, "Minister of Heaven, the information has been verified. That red-clothed young man is the military advisor of the 5 regions. This is the portrait sent over by the scouts." Xiao Bieli waved his hand and received the portrait. After looking at it, his pupils constricted. "It's him." Xiao Bieli waved his hand and destroyed the portrait. He solemnly said, "Order Zhenyang Dongsen, Tiandu, and Taixin to immediately defend Eternal Heaven City." Chapter 560. In the northwest of Zhongzhou, 2 people were walking forward. The woman in the blue dress was beautiful and had an extraordinary temperament. Qing Ning, who had followed Zhang Sun since she was a child, had some of Zhang Suan's shadow in her. She was gentle and reserved, but also dignified. Ning Chen followed beside Qing Ning. His eyes were less arrogant and indifferent, but more peaceful and peaceful. In the knowing destiny state, although the devil's body was an anomaly, the 3 bodies were originally one and would eventually affect each other. It was unavoidable. If there were people in the knowing destiny state who could completely trust, Qing Ning would definitely be at the top of the list. The closer they got to the sword-casting villa, the slower Ning Chen walked. The rejection in his heart became more and more obvious. The devil's body was proud and cold. How could it apologize to others easily? If Qing Ning hadn't spoken, he probably wouldn't have stepped into the sword-casting villa in this life. Qingning stopped and looked at Ning Chun, who was walking slower and slower. A dangerous smile appeared on her face. She said, "Do you need me to drag you along?" Ning Chun looked at the beautiful smile on Qingning's face. His body trembled subconsciously, and he quickened his pace. Qingning's smile didn't fade, but became much gentler. As she walked, she asked softly, "Ning Chun, do you know why the devil is not accepted by the world?" "Because the devil won't follow the rules set by humans," Ning Chun answered after a moment of silence. Qingning nodded with a smile. She said, "You're right. Humans fear the devil, because there used to be a devil who harmed the world. The devil who harmed the world didn't follow any rules of the human world. A person's memory is very complicated. Kindness and affection are mostly fleeting, but the fear of the past will be remembered for a lifetime, and even passed down for thousands of years. They deserve to die." Ning Chen's eyes flashed with coldness and murderous intent. "Jingxin." Qingning put her hand in front of Ning Chen's heart and said softly, "I don't care about anyone in Zhongzhou. Even if you kill them all, I won't blame you. But killing is a habit. It will slowly make you lose yourself. One day, you will lose yourself and feel that everything can be solved by killing. It's hard to turn back. Do you understand?" "No." Ning Chen shook his head. Qingning put down her hand and looked to the east. She said, "You should know why you have this body." "Yes." Ning Chen nodded. "This is the reason." Qingning sighed softly and said, "In order to stop the Netherworld King, the Phoenix body and Fan Lingyue sacrificed millions of innocent people in the Divine Prefecture. Fan Lingyue used the last of his soul to repay the world. However, in order to resurrect the ghost girl, he lived on at all costs. As I said just now, if you kill too many people, you will lose yourself. Your existence is because of the negative emotions that he has been suppressing in his heart. Is my appearance a mistake?" Ning Chen's eyes gradually turned cold as he asked. "No." Qingning shook her head and said, "You and he are the same person. It's just that you've separated. In some ways, you're even better than the knowing destiny state." When Ning Chen heard this, the coldness in his eyes dissipated, and a trace of confusion appeared. He asked, "Where?" "Follow your heart." Qingning replied softly, "The knowing destiny state is a human body. Although he is smarter and more rational than everyone in the world, he can't escape the bondage of love after all. He rushes about because of love, and treats the world well because of love. You are a demon, and you don't see love as much as he does. Perhaps this little bit of humanity left is only because you are influenced by the other two souls. If you are not trapped by love, your life will not be so tiring." "Then you, Sister Qingning, why did you bring me here?" "Apologizing is not something a demon should do." Ning Chen snorted coldly. "Responsibility," Qingning said calmly. "You have to bear the consequences of your own actions. It's a good thing to follow your heart, but you can't act recklessly. I can't control the former devil, but I can't control you. The sects in the Central Province have wronged you. You can seek revenge on them, but Sword Forging Villa has never wronged you. Therefore, you have to admit this mistake. Whether you're willing or not, there's no room for discussion. I'm your sister, so you have to listen to me." "Okay." Ning Chen nodded and didn't quibble anymore. Perhaps he was really influenced by the other two souls. Every time he argued with Qingning, it was more difficult than facing a supreme master. Moreover, he didn't seem to reject this little bit of humanity in his heart. Apologize. No matter what, it was easier than facing Qingning, who could go crazy at any time. They quickened their pace and got closer to Sword Forging Villa. Although they were still far away, they could vaguely see the frost and flame mountains that had been destroyed in the previous battle. At sunset, they finally arrived at Sword Forging Villa. The once famous sword forging family gradually chose to live in seclusion after the sword master was seriously injured. They no longer interfered with the affairs of the central province. In front of the villa, 2 doormen were guarding. Their cultivation was not bad, almost reaching the Khanate realm. For their age, it was already a good level. "Honorable guests, please wait. The villa is not receiving guests now." When the two approached, one of the doormen stepped forward and stopped them. "We are here to visit the sword master. Please make an exception," Qingning said sincerely. Sorry, the sword master is not seeing anyone now. Please go back. The doorman refused again. Seeing that the two refused to let them go, Ningchen frowned. He was about to step forward when Qing Ning glared at him. Brother Bai. Just as Qing Ning was about to speak again, a little girl with braided hair, who looked to be about 12 or 13 years old, saw the two of them and jogged over, beaming with joy. Qing Ning's eyes narrowed, and she turned around with a questioning gaze. Ningchen did not reply. He tried his best to show a bright smile, and looked at the little girl. Yinar, I haven't seen you in 3 or 4 years. You've grown so big. Brother Bai, where's sister Bai? Yinar looked around but did not see Bai Yinlian. She was slightly disappointed. Your sister Bai is busy and did not come. Yinar, we want to see the sword master. Bring us in, Ningchen said seriously. You're looking for Grandpa Sword Master? Yinar's eyes flashed with a strange light. She thought for a moment and said to the doorman, Let them in. They are my friends. Yes, young miss. The two doormen said respectfully. After they finished speaking, they stepped aside and no longer blocked the way. Brother Bai, where have you and sister Bai been all these years? Why haven't you come to see Ina even once? Yinar turned around and complained as she led the way. We went on a long trip. As soon as we came back, we came to see you, Ningchen replied. Qing Ning was helpless. Her ability to spout nonsense had not changed at all. Not long after you and sister Bai left, Grandpa Sword Master ordered the manor to be sealed. I couldn't go out either. I thought you two would never come to see me again, Yinar muttered. Aren't we here now? Ningchen smiled. Brother Bai, when you see Grandpa Sword Master later, can you ask him to take me out to play for a few days? Yinar turned around again and asked with a longing look on her face. Ningchen looked at Qing Ning for help. Qing Ning ignored him. Her attitude was very clear. She had caused the trouble herself, so she had to solve it herself. Ningchen looked at the little girl unnaturally and tactfully refused. There is still a war outside. It's very dangerous. Wait a few more days. Oh. Yinar seemed to understand something and nodded. A trace of loneliness flashed in her eyes. It was very faint, but it was clear enough to make one's heart ache. Yinar, right? Qing Ning revealed a gentle smile and said, Your brother Bai is just joking with you. There is indeed a war outside. However, he is a military advisor and doesn't need to go to the battlefield. When he sees Grandpa Sword Master later, your brother Bai will plead for you. When Yinar heard this, her lonely face immediately brightened up. She nodded vigorously and said, Thank you, sister. Thank you, Bai. Before she could finish speaking, the little girl snorted. She was clearly angry with someone. Ningchen looked at Qing Ning in confusion. How could he take a little girl with him now? Grandpa Sword Master, Brother Bai is here. In front of a study room, Yinar knocked on the door and said crisply, Come in, Yinar. Wait outside. As he spoke, the door creaked open. Inside, an old man in a wheelchair appeared in front of the two of them. Okay. Yinar nodded obediently and stopped in front of the door. She did not enter. Ningchen and Qing Ning walked in. Seeing the old man in the room, Ningchen politely bowed. Greetings, Grandpa Sword Master. Who is this lady? Master Sword Forger glanced at Ningchen before shifting his gaze to the woman in the green dress. Qing Ning, Ningchen's older sister, replied Qing Ning. Hearing this, a strange look flashed across Swordsmith's old eyes. The world-famous Jiming Marquis had a sister? May I ask why the two of you have come? Asked Grandpa Sword Master. We came to apologize, Qing Ning said. Back then, there was a problem with my younger brother's cultivation. The demonic body left my body and injured Grandpa Sword Master. Although it wasn't my younger brother's intention, a mistake is a mistake. Today, Qing Ning has brought my younger brother here to apologize to Grandpa Sword Master for what happened back then. Grandpa Sword Master frowned and said, What about the demonic body? The demonic chi that erupted from the demonic wheel ocean was extremely shocking. Suppressing it won't be easy. The demonic body has already been exiled to the outer heavens. It won't be able to return in its lifetime, said Ningchen calmly. Grandpa Sword Master nodded and sighed emotionally. That's good. As long as the world doesn't suffer from the demonic disaster, my injuries are worth it. Ningchen was silent. A moment later, he waved his hand, and a blood-red sword surrounded by demonic chi appeared and landed in front of Grandpa Swordmaster. Grandpa Swordmaster, I injured you back then. Today I'll return the favor. This time, I won't fight back. After this sword we'll be even. Forget it, I'm old. If I'm crippled, then so be it. You're still young. As long as you know you're wrong, that's enough. I only hope that you can be a little more forgiving when you face the grudges between the central continent's sections. People's hearts are easily tainted. You can't kill all of them. Grandpa Swordmaster looked at Qing Ning and said gently, Miss Qing Ning, Jiming Marquis is truly fortunate to have an older sister like you. Chapter 561. The great Xia Jiming Marquis, who had never lowered his head in his entire life, admitted his mistake in front of an elder with crippled legs. Qing Ning stood to the side and watched quietly. No matter what happened in the past or in the future, a mistake was a mistake. The elder sister was like a mother. Her mother was no longer here, so she was the only one who could take care of it. The sword master accepted the bow, but he did not pick up the sword in front of him. Forgiveness was not easy, and it was even harder to repay kindness with evil. As a member of the Central Plains, the sword master showed the temperament of a grandmaster. Crimson Drill is the Crimson Drill demon sword from 4,000 years ago. It has been stained with the blood of countless people, and its resentment is extraordinary. Now I have no strength to guard it. If this sword falls into the hands of evil people, it will become a disaster. Jiming Marquis, since you pulled out this sword, you have the responsibility to guard it, and not let it fall into the hands of others. The sword master waved his hand and returned the sword. Sword master, are you not worried that I am the source of the disaster? Ningchen asked slowly. The great Xia Jiming Marquis, who once protected the world with his life, cannot be the source of the disaster, the sword master replied. Hearing this, Ningchen fell silent. After a long while he said indifferently, I will give the sects of the Central Plains a chance, but only once. It is to repay the sword master's kindness today. Thank you, the sword master said seriously. Back then, the sects of the Central Plains had gathered all the forces of the world, and still could not kill the young man in front of him. Now that he had returned alive, with his intelligence and strength, if he really wanted to take revenge, the entire Central Plains would fall into panic. Seeing that the serious matter was over, and the atmosphere was becoming stiff, Qing Ning stepped forward and said politely, Sword Master, it is late. There are still some things to deal with in competitive Peak City. We will return first. The world is chaotic. Be careful, the sword master instructed. Okay. Qing Ning nodded. Looking at the people beside her, she turned and walked out of the study. Ningchen followed, but after a few steps he stopped and said, Sword master, Ina wants to go out. Hearing this, the sword master thought for a moment and said, Sorry to trouble you. Ningchen understood what the sword master meant and walked away. On the way back to Competitive Edge City, the group of two became three, with the addition of a little girl with braided hair. She was beaming with joy and chattering nonstop. When dawn broke, the three of them returned to Competitive Edge City. Qing Ning returned to her palace while Ina stayed by Ning Chen's side. You're lying. You're called Ning Chen, not White Jade Jing. Ina pouted unhappily. During that period of time, it was called White Jade Capital, Ning Chen casually said. I don't want to be with you. I want to find Big Sister Bai, Ina protested. Your big sister Bai isn't here right now. I don't know where she went, Ning Chen replied. You're lying to me. Ina no longer trusted him. I'm not lying to you, Ning Chen denied. One adult and one child, one human and one demon. Strangely, they didn't have any communication barriers. Facing a little girl who wasn't a threat at all, the demon's instinctive wariness decreased a lot. As she drank tea, she thought about things and answered the little girl's questions intermittently. Outside the palace, Qing Ning looked at Wenxian Palace not far away and smiled faintly. It seemed that bringing that little girl here was the right choice. Although the demon's body was trying its best to imitate the phoenix body, it still lacked the warmth and coldness of human nature. It might not be a problem in the short term, but in the long term, It might arouse suspicion. Qing Ning, Master just sent news that your third senior sister has also come down the mountain. Bai Lingling walked up and said, "Third senior sister?" Hearing this, Qing Ning's eyes flashed with surprise. Third senior sister was also coming. Third senior sister was a true genius among geniuses on the mountain. Perhaps this kind of phrase wasn't enough to describe how terrifying her talent was. The most powerful person on the mountain was undoubtedly Master. The other person was eldest senior sister. She cultivated the clear sky glass art, and was between half venerable and human supreme. She wasn't a supreme, but she was even stronger than a supreme. The third person was third senior sister. She was also at the peak of half venerable. However, because of her cultivation, she was slightly weaker than eldest senior sister. Your third senior sister has broken through to the peak stage, Bai Lingling said again. How is that possible? Qing Ning was shocked. After a while, the shock on her face gradually faded. Perhaps nothing was impossible for her third senior sister. Master sent your third senior sister down the mountain. Other than supporting the Central Plains sects, there should be some other mission. However, this girl's actions are too worrisome. Qing Ning, if you have time, keep an eye on her, Bai Lingling said helplessly. Okay. Qing Ning nodded and didn't refuse. Compared to her terrifying talent, she was more famous for her terrifying personality. When she thought up to here, Qing Ning couldn't help but be slightly worried. Presently, the situation in the central prefecture was already so chaotic, so third senior sister's arrival would only add to the chaos. Moreover, this clone of Ning Chen's wasn't easy to deal with as well, so they would definitely fight each other when they encountered each other. Just as the two of them were talking, a guard quickly walked over from outside Wenxian Palace. He half knelt and respectfully said, "Advisor, the Alliance Lord requests to see you." "Understood. You can leave now." "Yes." Not long after, Ning Chen walked out of the palace and walked towards the conference hall on the other side. Behind him, Ener followed him like a little tail. Although she said she didn't want to be with a certain someone, she still followed him. Within the conference hall, Zhao Liusu quietly waited. When she saw the little girl behind Ning Chen, she frowned at first, but she quickly covered it up. "Advisor, there's progress in the battle. Also, the other 3 regions have sent new peak experts over. They should be here in 2 days, said Zhao Liusu. Ning Chen picked up the battle reports from the east and read them one by one. Then he raised his head and asked, "Who are the experts they sent?" "There's a human sovereign from each of the 3 regions, but..." At this point, Zhao Liusu changed the topic. She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "The sovereign from West Buddha's homeland has just entered the perfection stage. However, there's something wrong with his personality. Now is a crucial time for the 5-territory alliance. If these people offend you in any way, I hope that you can forgive them." Hearing this, Ning Chen's eyes slightly narrowed. A newly advanced sovereign was actually able to make Zhao Liusu, the leader of the 5-territory alliance, give him special instructions. It seemed that the sovereign from West Buddha's homeland wasn't someone easy to deal with. At the same time, in the west of Zhongzhou, a girl in a green dress appeared. She walked alone in the boundless wilderness. Xiyao Mountain's 3rd senior sister, Shi Piaoxiu. She was the one with the most terrifying talent on the mountain for countless years. She didn't put much effort into cultivation, but it didn't stop her cultivation from progressing much faster than anyone of the same age on the mountain. Everyone on the mountain was a genius, but Shi Piaoxiu was a genius among geniuses. After 100 miles, a mountain blocked her path. However, Shi Piaoxiu didn't stop at all. She broke through every mountain she encountered. Step by step, the entire mountain collapsed. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere, as it was split into 2. Chapter 562. In competitive Peak City, the Alliance Venerables and Advisor Jun were sitting on both sides of the hall. They were discussing how to fight against Heaven's Sanctum. In the first battle of Heaven's Sanctum, Zhongzhou had lost 3 Venerables, including the injured Supreme Bodhi and the half-crippled Palace Lord Tai Bai. The 5 regions' Venerables had suffered a great loss. The 8 Venerables under them all had solemn expressions. Apart from the 8 of them, Venerables Mu Hua, Qi Wei, and Bailey each led an army to stop Heaven's Sanctum from expanding. Venerables Hong Lu had to deal with the refugees, and wouldn't be able to return in a short period of time. The only good news was that 3 more venerables from Nanling, Beiyuan, and Shi too had come to support Zhongzhou. Ningchen quietly listened to the venerables' discussion. He didn't say a word from start to finish. Venerables Li, why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? Zhao Liusu asked from the main seat. Since the start of the war, Zhongzhou's sects have suffered great losses. It won't be easy to get more reinforcements, Venerables Li replied. What about the other 3 regions? When will their reinforcements arrive? Zhao Liusu looked at Venerables Qingyu and asked. At least a month, Venerables Qingyu replied. Bang! Hearing this, Zhao Liusu slapped the armrest and sat up. She said coldly, a month? How long has it been delayed? Report. At this moment, a guard ran in from outside the hall and knelt down. Heaven's Sanctum has sent a letter to Advisor June. Send it in, Zhao Liusu said. Yes. The guard entered the hall and handed over the letter. Ningchen took the letter and glanced at it. His lips curled up. As expected, they still came. Advisor, what's the matter? Zhao Liusu asked. Ningchen handed the letter to her and said calmly, Someone wants to see you. Zhao Liusu frowned. After reading the letter, she reminded, Advisor June, be careful. Just catching up. Alliance Venerables, don't worry. Ningchen smiled and replied. Let Venerables Li and Hong Lu accompany Advisor June, Zhao Liusu said, still worried. There's no need. Ningchen stood up and shook his head. Everyone, please continue your discussion. I'll take my leave first. After he finished speaking, Ningchen didn't stay any longer and strode out of the hall. After the military advisor left, the 8 human supremes looked at each other. Venerable Xianzhen hesitated for a moment and said, Alliance Venerable, does this Marquis Jiming really want to help the central region fight against Heaven's Mansion? These days he didn't give any suggestions, nor did he express any opinions about our decisions. It's obvious that he still can't let go of the old grudges. Let go. Zhao Liusu's tone turned cold. She looked at the person in front of her and said, Xianzhen, I don't know if Jiming Marquis has let go of the past grudges, but the wise man gives his plans, and the martial artist shows his strength. The division of labor is clear. If the order can't be stopped, no matter how good the plan is, it's useless. Hearing this, Xianzhen Reverend's body froze. He couldn't argue anymore and fell silent. In Wenxian Palace, Ningchen walked back. When he didn't see Yin he walked out again. In the city, on the bustling streets, a 12 or 13-year-old girl was strolling by herself. She was already holding a large pile of things in her arms, but she still looked around with interest. Ningchen appeared and followed far behind. He knew that the phoenix body had once used phoenix blood to cleanse Yin'er's foundation. In addition, the little girl's talent was not bad. At such a young age, she was already a 5th stage natal stage expert. He more or less guessed Qingming's purpose. He lacked some humanity. Ordinary people might not be able to see it, but he couldn't guarantee that the human sovereign stage experts wouldn't be suspicious. Morning, afternoon, and then dusk. The facts once again proved how terrifying a woman could be when shopping, even if she was only a 12 or 13-year-old girl. As the sun set, there were fewer stalls on the streets. Only then did Yin reluctantly carry her pile of things back along the road she came from. Yin. When the little girl approached, Ningchen called out. Yin turned her head from behind the small mountain of things in her arms. Seeing the person in front of her, she asked, Why are you looking for me? I'm going to see a friend. Come with me, Ningchen said. No. Yin shook her little head vigorously and refused. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. This little girl was not as easy to fool as she was when she was 7 or 8 years old. Stay here by yourself. No one will take care of you. Ningchen continued to persuade her. Sister Qingming is here. Yin continued to shake her head. Your sister Qingming went to pick up her senior sister. She's not in the city, Ningchen said. I have money. I can take care of myself. Yin looked at her little pouch and refused to give in. Then I'm leaving. You can stay here by yourself. If anyone bullies you, don't regret it. Don't forget that although some people in the city are very polite to me on the surface, they actually hate me. If I'm not here, Sai. After speaking, Ningchen shook his head and turned to leave the city. When Ina heard this, she immediately jogged 2 steps to catch up. Her eyes curved as she said, I'm going too. Don't force yourself. Ningchen said reasonably. I won't. Ina smiled. Thus, the two of them left competitive Peak City and headed towards the southeast. 2 days later, in the east of Central Plains, 2 cups of tea were served in front of the battle between the 2 armies. Xiao Bieli waited patiently for Ji Ming to appear. Just as the appointed time was about to arrive, a red-robed figure appeared in the distance. He walked over step by step. When the allied army saw him, they immediately parted to welcome him. As expected, you came. Xiao Bieli stood up and calmly looked at him. It would be impolite to refuse an invitation from the heavens. Ningchen smiled. Please sit. Xiao Bieli extended his hand. Many thanks. Ningchen didn't stand on ceremony and sat down. Now, should I call you Sir Bai or Jiming Marquis? Asked Xiao Bieli. It's just a name. Do as you wish. Huh. Xiao Bieli smiled. I never thought that after parting in the heavenly sanctum, we would meet again in such a situation. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Who can predict what will happen in advance? I heard from Reverend Jin Yang that you like to drink tea. This cup of tea was specially prepared for you. Please try it. Xiao Bieli pushed one of the cups over. Ningchen took a sip and calmly said, the quality of the tea isn't bad. Unfortunately, the heavens didn't specially invite me to drink it. This tea is tasteless. Xiao Bieli smiled. The Grand Xia's Jiming Marquis not only has a killing sword, but also a mouth sharper than a sword. I'm fully worthy of such praise. Ningchen put down his cup without the slightest modesty. Knowledge, Marquis. Practically everyone in the world knows that you were forced into the ocean of Devil Wheel. I'm very curious. With the enmity between you and the various sects of the Central Prefecture, why did you choose to help them? Asked Xiao Libi. The Pill Tower and the Heavenly Sanctum's sacred lands also have enmity with each other. But aren't they following the heavens to conquer the 5 regions? I presume you know the reason even without me saying it, said Ningchen. It's different. Xiao Bieli shook his head. We're doing it for survival, while you're repaying evil with good. Jiming Marquis, if you promise not to interfere in the war between the 2 realms, I can also promise you that I won't let the flames of war spread to the eastern divine plains. Oh, Ningchen narrowed his eyes. That promise from the heavens is truly a great temptation. It's just a win-win deal. Jiming Marquis, there's no need for you to take such risks for people who have nothing to do with you, or even have enmity with you. You shouldn't care who's in charge of the world, right? Said Xiao Bieli. Ningchen, you can't be tricked by this scoundrel. Ina hastily reminded him when she saw that a certain person was about to switch sides. Don't be rude. Also call me Big Brother Ning, said Ningchen softly. Who is this? Asked Xiao Bieli curiously. Ina, the descendant of a senior. I've come out to broaden my horizons. It's fine as long as she doesn't exist, said Ningchen. Your talent isn't bad. Xiao Bieli waved his hand, took out a sheepskin scroll, and handed it over. This is a secret art of the Tianxiang dynasty, the heavenly sword transformation. Since it's our first meeting, consider it a greeting gift from me to this junior. Ningchen smiled and said, Ina, why aren't you thanking Senior Tianxiang for bestowing martial arts upon you? Ina took a step forward and received the scroll. She obediently bowed. Many thanks, Senior Tianxiang. Xiao Bieli nodded, and then looked back at the young man. Jiming Marquis, what do you think of my suggestion? Compared to the Central Plains sects, the Heavenly Sanctum doesn't have much enmity with you. It shouldn't be difficult to choose who you can trust more. I will seriously consider your suggestion. However, there's something I've been unable to figure out. I hope you can explain it to me, said Ningchen. Please speak, said Xiao Bieli. I once stayed on the Heavenly Sanctum planet for a period of time, so I have some understanding of the Heavenly Sanctum. With the Heavenly Sanctum's resources, it's more than enough to satisfy the various sections. Why must you pay such a huge price to invade the 5 regions? Asked Ningchen seriously. Xiaobieli fell silent. A moment later he sighed. This matter involves the heavenly sanctum's secrets. Forgive me for not being able to tell you. All I can say is that this war is extremely important to the heavenly sanctum. We can't back down. Ning Chen's eyes lit up. If the two realms stop fighting, what are the heavenly sanctum's conditions? The inner realm will completely give up the central region, replied Xiaobieli. There's no room for discussion? Asked Ning Chen. There's no room for discussion, said Xiaobieli calmly. I'll tell the Alliance sovereigns about this condition when I return. However, the Central Plains sect's foundations are here. It'll be difficult to make them give up. Ning Chen shook his head regretfully. If they don't give up, then I'll beat them until they give up. Jiming Marquis, you're a smart person, the smartest person in the world. I hope your decision won't disappoint me. A red figure appeared behind Xiaobieli. It was a familiar face and a powerful aura. It was no weaker than a human sovereign. A moment later, the red figure faded and vanished. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes, but they returned to normal in the blink of an eye. He slowly said, as expected, you're not immortal. I never thought that the vermilion bird divine treasury would be found by you in the end. It was just a pleasant surprise. Jiming Marquis, the reason I revealed so many secrets to you was because I didn't want to see two identical Jiming Marquises one day replace the other, said Xiaobieli indifferently. Don't worry, Jiming. That day won't come. The corners of Ning Chen's mouth curled up as he smiled. Chapter 563. At the front of the two armies, Destiny Knowing and Heaven Minister finished their discussion. The armies retreated, and neither of them took the opportunity to attack. The two of them had a tacit understanding. Once the armies left, they both turned and left. The two of them stood with their backs facing each other, each with their own thoughts. The confrontation between the 5 regions and the heavenly sanctum had begun over a cup of tea. Heaven Minister, why didn't you kill him? Asked Fan Xinghong. She had been waiting for a long time. I'm not confident. Furthermore, I cherish talent. I don't want to become enemies with him, said Xiaobieli softly. Will he really agree to Heaven Minister's conditions and not interfere in the war between the two realms? Asked Fan Xinghong. I don't know. Perhaps he won't, replied Xiaobieli. Hearing this, Fan Xinghong frowned and said, since even the celestial phenomenon is not confident, why don't you let me kill him and get rid of future troubles? There's no need. Xiaobieli shook his head. You can't kill him. At least you can't right now. Wait. If he doesn't let go in 3 days, I'll give you a chance to kill him. On the other side, red clothes fluttered in the wind as the two of them traveled north together. Big Brother Ning, are you really going to agree to that bastard's conditions? Ener pouted unhappily. Why not? Asked Ning Chen. You're someone from the 5 regions. How can you compromise with the outer realms? Asked Ener. Do you think I care about such things? Smiled Ning Chen. You can't agree to it. Otherwise, once the Central Plains falls, I'll have no home to return to. Ener tried to persuade him once more. The eastern region is vast enough to accommodate a new sword-forging mountain manor. Ning Chen smiled. I don't want to go to the eastern region. Big Brother Ning, don't give up on the Central Plains, said Ener. It's not up to me to decide whether to give up or not. Ener, I promised your grandpa the sword master that I would give the Central Plains sects a chance. However, if they don't want this chance, I won't force them, said Ning Chen calmly. In the Jingfeng city in the north of Zhongzhou state, in the main hall where all the venerables were having a discussion, a secret report had recorded the details of the meeting between Knowing Destiny and Tianxiang. When Zhao Liusu saw it, she frowned slightly. Alliance Senior, what happened? Below the seats, 2 new faces sat quietly. One of them opened his mouth and asked. Zhao Liusu came back to her senses and smiled faintly. It's nothing. The spies have reported that the negotiations between the military advisor and the celestial minister have ended. They should be back soon. Great Xia's Jiming Marquis. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, said Zun Wenyang of Nanling. South of Competitive Peak City, 400 miles away, a red coat was heading north. At the same time, a green coat was heading east. As they passed each other, Ning Chun stopped in his tracks. It was at this point that Green Robe turned, smiled, and mercilessly unleashed a palm strike. Ning Chun grabbed Einer. His figure was like an illusion, as he quickly retreated dozens of feet. However, the green-clothed woman was unwilling to let him go. Her delicate hand was like the sickle of the Grim Reaper, threatening to take his life. Ning Chun took a strange step, and the water light flickered. He avoided the woman's palm power, unwilling to take it head-on. Great Xiajiming Marquis, where is your sword? The green-clothed woman smiled. She took a step forward and pointed. The sand around her gathered into a sword that tore through the air. Ning Chun frowned slightly. He flipped his palm and sent Einer out of the battle. Then he waved his hand, and the clear sunly fire appeared. The white fan moved the wind and clouds, blocking the sand swords. Why aren't you fighting back? Are you unwilling or unable? Seeing that the opponent was only dodging and not attacking, the green-clothed woman's attacks became even fiercer. Shi Piaoxiu, this is the first time we meet, yet you want to use martial arts to force me. This greeting gift is really hard to accept. Ning Chun's figure flashed, and he once again avoided the former's palm power. Jiming Marquis is indeed smart, but just being smart isn't enough to keep you alive. With her identity exposed, Shi Piaoxiu's attacks did not stop at all. She flipped her palm, and the dust in the surroundings surged like a tide, sweeping thousands of feet. Her shocking power and killing intent were not hidden at all. A cold light flashed through Ning Chun's eyes. He stepped forward, and his white fan became a sword. Sword chi gathered in the surroundings, and he once again formed a peak sword. At this moment, a silver spear tore through the air and crashed toward the woman in the battle. When Shi Piaoxiu saw this, she changed the direction of her palm and knocked away the silver spear. Junior apprentice sister, you actually attacked your senior apprentice sister for an outsider. How naughty, smiled Shi Piaoxiu. As soon as she finished speaking, Bai Lingling appeared. Looking at the battle, her gentle expression hardened, and she softly reprimanded. Piaoxiu, don't cause trouble. Qing Ning walked in front of the silver spear and put it away. She looked back and said coldly, Third senior apprentice sister, I don't care if you did it intentionally or not. In this world, anyone who dares to harm him will be my enemy. It's the same for everyone. Ning Chen's figure descended from the sky. Looking at the two chosen, who had also come from the western Jade Mountain, his eyes constantly flashed. A sect with two sovereigns, plus Bai Lingling who wasn't a chosen, but was even stronger than a chosen. The western Jade Mountain's foundation was truly shocking. When he had time, he wanted to see just what kind of person this western Jade Mountain master was. She was actually able to raise so many monstrous disciples. Is the fight over? Seeing that there was no movement, Einer ran over and asked. It's over. Let's go back. Ning Chun smiled as he spoke. Soon after, he strode forward. Qing Ning followed by Bai Lingling and Shi Piaoxiu. They all had different expressions and thoughts. Piaoxiu, you should know that the Jiming Marquis is junior apprentice sister's reverse scale. Don't make such a joke in the future, said Bai Lingling seriously. Who says I'm joking? This time, junior apprentice sister just happened to stop me, smiled Shi Piaoxiu. Hearing this, Bai Lingling frowned. Why? With junior apprentice sister's talent, if she doesn't sever her ties with the mortal world, she won't be able to enter the chosen realm in this lifetime. Apart from completing master's task, my main goal was to kill this Jiming Marquis, said Shi Piaoxiu indifferently. If you do this, Qing Ning will hate you for the rest of her life, said Bai Lingling. Hate, love, hatred. Human emotions will fade with time. Being a chosen has been a chosen for 800 years. Junior apprentice sister has plenty of time to forget these things. Moreover, Shi Piaoxiu suddenly changed the topic. She looked at the red-clothed figure and smiled. In the short exchange just now, I discovered that this Jiming Marquis seemed to be doing his best to avoid using his cultivation. There must be a reason for this. I think that the Jiming Marquis' current body can't easily use martial arts. Bai Lingling was silent. After a moment she sighed. Piaoxiu, don't be rash. Not to mention the Jiming Marquis' position in junior apprentice sister's heart. This is a critical moment in the battle between the two realms. If the 5 regions lose a military advisor, who can contend against the heavenly minister, the situation will immediately become unfavorable for the inner realm. It's not the inner realm, but the central region. Although heaven's sanctum is strong, without a chosen above chosen, it's more than enough to conquer the central region. It'll be difficult to conquer the entire 5 regions, said Shi Piaoxiu. As the two talked, the group returned to competitive Peak City. Ningchen entered the meeting hall. Everyone stood up and respectfully welcomed him. Military advisor, how did the meeting go? Asked Zhao Liusu. Ningchen walked to his seat and sat down. He looked at the 8 supremes, and the 2 unfamiliar supremes and smiled. These 2 should be supremes Wenyang and Xinling, right? Wenyang, Xinling. Greetings, military advisor. The 2 of them took half a step forward and politely bowed. No need for formalities. Please sit, said Ningchen. Thank you, military advisor. The 2 of them bowed once more before returning to their seats. The heavenly minister's condition for stopping the war is for the 5 regions to completely give up the central region. You can all think about it, said Ningchen. Impossible. Supremacy Li suddenly sat up and directly rejected it. His sudden figure seemed very lonely in the hall. Xianzhen, Yuxing, Qingyu, and the other supremes from the other 3 regions chose to remain silent. A strange atmosphere rose in the hall, making it indescribably oppressive. Seeing that they didn't say anything, Supremacy Li's expression sank. Fellow Supremes, you should all understand that if the central region is lost so easily, the heavenly sanctum's ambition will grow infinitely. None of you want to see the flames of war spread to your own regions, right? Supremacy Li is right. Those who aren't of our race are bound to have different intentions. The heavenly sanctum paid such a huge price to break open the Netherworld King's barrier. So how could they give up so easily? This condition is just to divide the 5 regions. Zhao Liusu said solemnly. The Supremes fell silent. For a moment no one spoke. Right, there's one more thing. Perhaps it can only be considered a private matter. The heavenly minister promised that as long as Grand Destiny withdrew from the war between the 2 realms, he would guarantee that the eastern region wouldn't be affected by the flames of war. Such a tempting condition, I can't even think of an excuse to refuse, said Ningchen. When Zhao Liusu and the other supremes heard this, their expressions changed. What a heavenly minister! This was a plot to sow discord. He didn't even try to hide it. Military advisor, with your intelligence, there's no way you can't see that this is just a plot by the heavenly minister to sow discord. Don't fall for it, said Supremacy Li uneasily. So discord? Ningchen smiled. I know, but aren't you all tempted as well? Perhaps the heavenly sanctum will be satisfied if they take over the central plains. Of course, even if they aren't satisfied, there's still the northern plains, western earth and Nanling. The heavenly sanctum's current strength isn't enough to take over the 5 regions. With this promise, the eastern region will definitely be the safest region. The central plains won't be lost. We'll do our best to help the central plains stop the heavenly sanctum. Please don't give up on this world, said Supremacy Xianling and Supremacy Wenyang. In the next moment, Supreme Xianzhen, Yuxing, and Qingyu also stood up and respectfully asked for orders. The 10 supremes all bowed. The hall was abnormally quiet. Zhao Liusu also stood up and bowed silently. Outside the hall, Shi Piaoxi walked in and smiled. The Grand Xiao's Grand Destiny Marquis truly lived up to his name. The heavenly minister's plan to sow discord seemed to have backfired. This battle of the wise was truly marvelous to the extreme. Piaoxiu, the knowing Destiny Marquis can't die, said Bai Lingling seriously. The heavenly minister was too powerful. With just a few words, he had caused the already unstable alliance of the 5 regions to almost completely collapse. One had to admit that in this world, in addition to absolute strength, absolute wisdom also had an important position. Chapter 564. In competitive Peak City, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. In front of Wenxian Palace, Hong Yi stood quietly with thoughts flashing through his eyes. From today's battle with Shi Piaoxiu, the demonic calamity's influence on him was more serious than he had imagined. His unstable cultivation body would bring him unpredictable danger at any time. Demon, Ningchen murmured softly. In this world, other than him, there was only one true demon. Thinking of this, Ningchen turned and walked into the hall, heading directly to Yiner's room. The little girl was hugging a big pillow and sleeping soundly. She did not look like she was outside at all. Yiner, wake up. Ningchen shook the little girl and called out. Sleepy. Yiner snorted unhappily. Her eyes were wide open as she pushed the person in front of her away with a frown. She turned around and continued sleeping. I want to go out. Come with me. Ningchen continued calling out. No, go. Yiner pulled up the blanket and covered her head. She wrapped herself up and said in a daze. Be good. Sleep on the way. Ningchen pulled open the blanket and pulled the little girl out from under it and said softly. Didn't you just come back? Why are you going out again? The half-asleep Yiner frowned and tried to burrow into the blanket, resisting with all her might. Something came up. Let's go. Ningchen carried the little girl up forcefully and took the clothes at the side. He helped her put them on as he spoke. Can't you go by yourself? Yiner wrapped herself around the former like an octopus. After saying that, she fell asleep again. Ningchen struggled to put on the clothes and shoes for her. Just as he put her down, the little girl climbed onto the bed and slept soundly without a care for her image. Women are all the same trouble. Ningchen picked up the little girl and carried her on his back. Then he strode out of the hall. If not for the fact that he was worried that the bald donkey would sense the lack of human aura on him, he really wanted to throw the little girl out of the window. Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, Golden Buddha Ancient Temple, under the demon subduing pagoda, Bodhi sat upright. Swastikas circled around his body, healing the injuries from the previous battle. In the golden light, traces of black demonic chi lingered and clashed with the Buddhist's power, causing the Buddha's indestructible golden body to have an irreparable flaw. He used to be the head of the West Earth's Buddhist sect's three venerables. Now he had fallen to a state where it was hard to distinguish between a human and a ghost. Who could say for sure who was at fault? Buddhists were selfless. They were dedicated to all living beings in the world, slaying demons and suppressing demons. They had never had any utilitarian or selfish motives. The Buddha's path was getting harder and harder to traverse day by day. Gradually, he lost track of where he was. Outside the Golden Buddha Temple, a beautiful figure dressed in blue and white stood quietly. It was the demon venerable Bai Yunlian. He had been waiting for many days to avenge Yao Qilua. At this moment, Red Shirt appeared with the sleeping girl on his back. He stepped onto the stone steps in front of the temple and walked into the temple. As they passed each other, Ningchen stopped and looked at the woman beside him. Still waiting? He asked calmly. Yes. Bai Yunlian nodded. The current you can't kill him. Ningchen spoke the truth. Supreme Bodhi was already at the peak of the human sovereign realm. Even though his cultivation had declined after he demonized and the Buddha and demon clashed, he was still not someone that ordinary sovereigns could compare to. Bai Yunlian was silent. After a moment he asked, Can you help me? Ningchen shook his head. The current me can't help you. I'll give you another piece of advice. Revenge isn't urgent. Even if he was injured by the Sword Sovereign, as long as he's still in the Golden Buddha Temple, no one can kill him. The demon subduing pagoda was extremely helpful to Supreme Bodhi's cultivation. Unless the demon subduing pagoda was destroyed, the Golden Buddha Temple would be a forbidden land for demons and demons. Then why have you come here? Bai Yunlian was confused. You said before that you worked together with a demon to deal with Supreme Bodhi. I want to know where that person is. Back then, Xia Zi had been heavily injured and had been rescued by two women. White Flood Dragon had just entered the human realm, so he wasn't familiar with the experts of the human realm. However, Supreme Bodhi definitely knew. Xia Zi had walked the path of demonization much longer than him. Perhaps he could get some inspiration from him. That person was struck by Supreme Bodhi's palm. He might not survive, said Bai Yunlian softly. Whether he's dead or alive, we'll only know after we see him. I'll go in first, said Ningchen. If it's not convenient, Yiner can stay here with me for now. Bai Yunlian glanced at the little girl on Ningchen's back. No need. Ningchen shook his head as he spoke. and then he flipped his palm and blasted open the door to the temple before striding in. Ningchen walked over to the demon-subduing pagoda. Looking at the golden pagoda, he narrowed his eyes. When he saw this pagoda, he thought of the phoenix body's indestructible turtle shell. If he wanted to destroy this pagoda, it wouldn't be easy. Amitabha, benefactor, it's already too late today. Please come back tomorrow. A little monk continuously went up to stop him. Ningchen waved his hand, and a jade talisman appeared in his hand. He handed it to the little monk and calmly said, "Send this talisman into the pagoda." The little monk was puzzled, but when he sensed the powerful pressure coming from the talisman, he understood that he couldn't handle this matter. He took the jade talisman and quickly walked into the pagoda. Within the demon-subduing pagoda, Subhuti was still suppressing his injuries when he sensed someone enter. He opened his eyes and looked at the little monk. He calmly asked, "What is it?" Reporting to the venerable, someone outside sent a disciple to deliver this talisman. The little monk respectfully handed over the jade talisman. Subhuti's eyes lit up. This was the Alliance's commander's seal. "What does the person who sent you look like?" asked Subhuti. "It's a red-robed youth. He's carrying a sleeping girl on his back. Other than that, there's nothing special about him," replied the little monk. A red-robed youth. Subhuti softly muttered. He now had a better understanding of this person's identity. There could only be one red-robed youth who possessed this talisman. The Grand Xia's wisdom Marquis. Thinking of this, Subhuti stood up and walked outside. Ningchen calmly waited outside the demon-subduing pagoda. When he saw the Buddha walk out, he smiled. "Subhuti, long time no see. How have you been?" "Wisdom Marquis, are you here for revenge?" Subhuti waved his hand and returned the jade talisman. "Wrong. I'm here as the military advisor of the 5 Territory Alliance. I want to ask you something," replied Ningchen as he received the jade talisman. Subhuti's expression didn't change. He calmly asked, "What is it?" "Xia Zi's whereabouts, and the identity of the person who saved him." "Don't tell me you don't know?" asked Ningchen indifferently. Subhuti was silent for a moment. After a while he said, "At that time, there were 2 people who appeared. I don't know who one of them was. As for the other person, she was far away from the battle and didn't directly attack. However, from her aura, I can vaguely guess that she's very likely Luotian Mi Fei." "Oh, it's her?" Ningchen was startled. It was that mysterious woman again. "What's the background of this person?" Ningchen recovered from his shock and spoke with a serious expression. "Luoshui God," replied Subhuti truthfully. Ningchen's eyes narrowed. God. These 2 words weren't commonly used in the human world. Like the 4 symbols gods, they were strange existences that coexisted with heaven and earth. Of course, without any embellishments, only the 2 words God referred to the existence that surpassed everything. The king of hell, the 7 extremes. Who would have thought that Luotian Mi wasn't human? No wonder this woman was able to understand the law of words, even though she was only in the half-reverend realm. Many thanks. After saying this, Ningchen turned around and left. Hold on. Luotian stood up and said. Ningchen stopped and turned around, waiting for the former to speak. The corners of Luotian's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. She said, "Is it very difficult to suppress the demonic nature? In the Luoshui realm, I look forward to the Jiming Marquis return." When Ningchen heard this, the coldness in his eyes intensified. In the blink of an eye, he turned around and left. "Judging the situation, you've improved." Luotian smiled and said softly, although she didn't know why the devil body of the knowing destiny state would stay in the human world, she had to admit that this arrangement was really unexpected. Presumably, the various sects in the world were still in the dark. The scarlet devil that they had always feared had become the military advisor that they relied on the most. Outside the Luoshui realm, Ningchen turned around and his eyes flashed. The Luoshui god lived up to his name. To a certain extent, he was even scarier than the sovereign of the human world. In competitive Peak City, when the sun rose from the east, Jiming returned and threw Yin, who hadn't woken up, back onto the bed. Then, He took out the letter that Luofei had left for him and read it carefully. Jiming, when I saw the letter, I had already left with Z. Z is fine, there's no need to worry. You're different from Z. Z is too kind and entered the seamless realm, unable to escape. Relatively speaking, your understanding of the human heart is better than anyone else in the world. No matter what, you can maintain the greatest rationality. However, the sin of killing millions is not something that can be resisted by humans. Sooner or later, you will also have to face the punishment of the demonic tribulation. When Z entered the demonic path, I checked the Eternal Night scripture. Unfortunately, I only found a few bits of information. I hope it will be of help to you. Demons and demonic tribulations are not the same. Demons themselves do not have demonic tribulations. The reason why demonic tribulations exist is because of the conflict between human nature and demonic nature. Only by proving one's heart can one reach perfection. However, proving one's heart does not necessarily mean one's human nature. It is more likely that the demonic nature will completely devour one's human nature. Z has reached the critical moment of proving his heart. I took him away, because I did not want him to be disturbed by the human heart of this world. As for whether I can help him find his original heart, I am not sure. Remember, one day, when you also face this day, it is important to find your human nature. However, if the world does not give Jiming a chance to find his human nature, then completely enter the demonic path. You have done enough for the human world. There is no need to force yourself. I hope we can meet again. Take care. There were not many words, not even a page of ink, but it was the deepest care of a friend who had gone through life and death together. Perhaps, only those who truly cared about you would not care whether you were a human or a demon when you met again. After Ningchen finished reading the letter, demonic fire rose from his hand and burned the letter completely, leaving no trace behind. Outside the military advisor hall, a guard quickly stepped forward and knelt down. "What is it?" asked Ningchen calmly. "The Heavenly Palace's army has mobilized human sovereigns. The front lines are in an emergency. The Alliance sovereign has asked you to go over and discuss it," said the guard respectfully. Oh, when Ningchen heard this, a wisp of surprise flashed in his eyes. "So fast? You can leave first." "Yes." After dismissing the guard, Ningchen walked toward the conference hall. The 10 human sovereigns were sitting in the Hall of the Sovereigns with serious expressions. Clearly, the emergency at the front lines made them feel pressured. When Ningchen walked in, the 10 human sovereigns stood up and respectfully welcomed him. "What happened?" asked Ningchen, who was now the military advisor. "I don't know. Heaven's Sanctum suddenly launched an attack and sent out 5 human supremes to participate in the battle. Muhua, Chiwei, and Bai Li all suffered different degrees of injuries. The Allied forces also suffered heavy losses. They lost 4 cities in a single day," Zhao Liusu said in a low voice. Ningchen frowned slightly. It was not normal for the Heavenly Palace to use their human sovereigns before the inner realm. From the start of the war until now, apart from the first battle, neither side had used their human sovereigns. It wasn't that they couldn't, but that they didn't want to. This was a tacit understanding of war. The destructive power of human sovereigns was too shocking. Unless it was a decisive battle or as a last resort, no one was willing to use it. "Are there any important resources near the 4 cities that were seized?" asked Ningchen after thinking for a moment. "No." Zhao Liusu shook her head. "Strange." Ningchen got up and walked over to the map. He looked at it for a long time, but he still didn't see anything important about the 4 cities. If it wasn't for the resources or important checkpoints, then what was the Heavenly Palace's goal? Seeing the military advisor pondering, the 10 human sovereigns also remained silent. The Grand Xia's Jiming Marquis was more experienced than anyone else. This was what they lacked. Alliance sovereign, immediately send people to help the 3 human sovereigns. Mu Hua and the others are in danger. After a long time, Ningchen's eyes sank. When the 10 human sovereigns heard Zhao Liusu's words, they were all startled. They didn't understand. Perhaps defeating a human sovereign was possible, but killing a sovereign was not as simple as they thought. If a sovereign wanted to leave, even if there were two experts on the same level blocking them, it wouldn't be that easy. Unless the opponent was a supreme expert like the Sword Sovereign, only then would it be possible to kill a sovereign in a one-on-one battle. Everyone, I'm not joking with you. The decisive battle is about to begin. If you don't want anything to happen to the three sovereigns, immediately go and help them, said Ning Chun when he saw the other sovereigns looking at each other. This time's war would be different from the past. That celestial minister didn't even think about taking over the Central Plains step by step. Instead, he was preparing for the decisive battle right after he finished mobilizing his troops. Of course, this method had greater risks. But if the Heavenly Palace wasn't prepared enough, it was also a rare opportunity. It had to be said that Celestial Minister was truly daring to enter the decisive battle as soon as the war began. However, from another point of view, this also exposed a problem with the Heavenly Palace. They lacked time, a great lack of time. Gambling would always be a taboo for a commander. It was impossible for Celestial Minister to not know this, even if it might catch the Heavenly Palace by surprise. Report. Just at this moment, the battle report came from outside the palace. Come in, said Jiaoliusu. The guard ran in, reported the battle, and then quickly retreated. Jiaoliusu opened the report, and her expression changed. Alliance Sovereign, what happened? Asked Xianjin Sovereign. Battle report from the front lines. Half a day ago, the Heavenly Palace's army attacked again. An unknown expert attacked and killed Mu Huazuan in less than 30 moves, said Jiaoliusu. When the 10 sovereigns heard this, their expressions sank. How was that possible? Was it the Sword Sovereign? Asked Xianjin Sovereign. In the entire Heavenly Palace, the only person who could kill a sovereign in less than 30 moves was the Sword Sovereign. No. Jiaoliusu shook her head. The report specifically mentioned that this person wasn't the Sword Sovereign. When the sovereigns heard this, their expressions became extremely ugly. Just the Sword Sovereign was enough to make them extremely wary. Now, there was another expert who wasn't any weaker than the Sword Sovereign. Did the heavens really want to destroy the Central Plains? Military advisor. Jiaoliusu looked at Ning Chun. What should we do now? Xianjin Sovereign. Immediately send someone to Luo Divine City to inform Alcate King about this matter. Tell him to be more careful. Sovereign Wenyang, you're responsible for calling back all the sovereigns except for Sovereign Honglu, who is taking care of the refugees outside. As for Sovereign Bailey and Sovereign Chiwei, there's no need to send anyone to support them. It's too late. They'll definitely know about Mu Huazuan's death before we do. They'll know what to do. Also, Sovereign Li Shan, go and replace Mu Huazuan to stabilize the army's morale. From today onwards, the strategy will change. We don't have to care about the gains and losses of each city, even if it's a large city with war resources. If we can't defend it, destroy all the resources. Last but not least, and the most important thing, all the sovereigns should be on standby at all times. Yes. When the sovereigns heard this, they bowed respectfully. Chapter 566. In Eternal Heaven City, Tianxiang stood still. Battle reports were constantly being sent back from the front lines. The war between the two realms had begun, and victory had to be decided in the shortest amount of time. At the same time, on the battlefield between the two realms, Tianfu's army was divided into 3 groups. Each group was led by 2 supremes, and they advanced towards the north with all their might. Their fierce attacks forced the allied forces to retreat again and again. The price of not being able to destroy the Heaven's Manor army that day was now clear. The Heaven's Manor army had left their home, and their numbers were no less than the Central Plains army. Adding on the advantage of sovereigns, the Alliance army was forced into a passive position. However, even with the advantage at the front lines, Xiao Bieli's face didn't reveal any joy. Tianxiang, is there something wrong? Fan Xinghong looked at Tianxiang in confusion. Xiao Bieli looked ahead and nodded. The battle seems to be in our favor, but it's not progressing as quickly as we imagined. The Alliance army of the Central Plains' main goal is to drag things out, and they rarely clash head-on. Although they've been defeated time and time again, they haven't been destroyed. They've only lost a few unimportant cities. Xinghong doesn't know much about war. If there's anything I can help with, please tell me, said Fan Xinghong. Xiaobieli sighed. That Jiming Marquis did everything perfectly. If we had enough time, it would be a joyous thing to have such an opponent. However, the Heavens Manor doesn't have time, and we can't afford to drag things out. Tianxiang, what do you mean? Asked Fan Xinghong. Kill the Jiming Marquis, said Xiaobieli. Fan Xinghong's eyes narrowed. In the end, it still came to this. Your mission is to work together with the Vermilion Bird to eliminate the Jiming Marquis. I've already found a way to deal with it based on the way the Jiming Marquis fought with you in Nether City. When the time comes, the Vermilion Bird will cooperate with you and create an opportunity for you. Remember, the Jiming Marquis battle experience is incomparable to ordinary people, and he'll quickly adapt. If you can't kill him within 10 moves, immediately retreat, said Xiaobieli. Yes, said Fan Xinghong respectfully. In the Hall of Venerables of Competitive Peak City, Ning Chun looked at the map of the army in the hall and inserted a bamboo stick into it from time to time. He was weighing the gains and losses of each city and the impact it would have on the allied forces. Pingyu City, 10,000 reinforcements. After 10 days of delay, more than 2,000 have died. Retreat. Yes. Jinhui City, we have 10,000 reinforcements. We have stalled for 15 days, and 3,000 have died in battle. Retreat. Yes. Pingwuan City, 20,000 reinforcements. Defend and fight to the death. Yes. One after another, orders were passed down from the Hall of Supremes. All the human Supremes looked solemn. They knew very well that the current battle situation was obviously unfavorable for the central region. However, the military advisors' arrangement had already preserved the combat power of the Allied forces to the greatest extent. No one could say anything about it. The fierce offensive of the Heavens Mansion army had exceeded everyone's expectations. The battle had just begun, and they had already entered the decisive stage. This was something that had never happened before. That celestial phenomenon had spared no expense in his fierce attacks, causing the Allied forces to feel the greatest pressure. Advisor, if this continues, the Heavens Mansion army will attack the north sooner or later. Are we going to keep defending like this? Reverend Xianjun stood up with a worried expression. In war, if you win, you have to defend. Right now, the Allied forces are just paying back their debts. Right now, the Heavens Mansion army is basically on par with the central region. With the threat of that peak Supremes, who knows when they will attack? Only by defending can we reduce our losses, replied Ning Chun as he looked at the map. Is this situation irreversible? Asked Reverend Wen Yang in a deep voice. Situation? When did I say that we're at a disadvantage? Said Ning Chun indifferently. Everyone was startled when they heard this. Anyone could see that the Allied forces were being pushed back again and again by the Heavens Mansion army. Advisor, please tell us, said Zhao Liusu from the main seat. I've said it before. Gambling is always a taboo for a leader. If you win, you'll be caught off guard. If you lose, you'll suffer a crushing defeat. The chances of winning are 50-50. Alliance Master, if you were in my shoes, would you place your hopes on a single bet? Ning Chun said calmly. I wouldn't. Zhao Liusu shook her head. She believed that neither the inner realm nor the Heavens Mansion could afford to lose this war. This kind of gamble was too risky. You wouldn't, and the Minister of Heaven shouldn't do this, especially when they have the advantage in numbers. The only explanation for that Minister of Heaven making this choice is that the Heavens Mansion needs time. Ning Chen's lips curled into a cold smile as he said, if the Heavens Mansion army and the Allied forces continue fighting step by step, with the Minister of Heaven behind them, the chances of victory are only 50-50. However, in the current situation, the Heavens Mansion army's chances of victory are less than 30%. Everyone looked at each other when they heard this, and the worry in their hearts was greatly relieved. Advisor, you mean that the Allied forces have the advantage right now? Asked Zhao Liusu softly. Not completely. We do have the advantage in the overall situation, but looking at the overall situation, we're still in an absolutely passive position, said Ningchen honestly. Zhao Liusu frowned when she heard this. What do you mean? Simply put, although the Allied forces are losing again and again, this situation will slowly reverse soon. Of course, the precondition is that the Allied forces don't make any more intolerable mistakes, said Ningchen. What about that expert comparable to the Sword Sovereign? Will he become a variable? Asked Zhao Liusu. Alliance Sovereign? What do you think is the reason for this situation? Without him, the Heavens Mansion wouldn't even have the qualifications to gamble. The 30% chance of victory I mentioned is because of his existence. Otherwise, how could the Heavens Mansion army have a 10% chance of victory? Said Ningchen indifferently. When everyone heard this, a weird look flashed across their eyes. What an arrogant Jiming Marquis. Other than his ability to set up a trap, the arrogance in his words was very different from the martial Marquis of Wuxia. Report. At this moment, a voice rang out from outside the hall, drawing everyone's attention back. Come in, said Zhao Liusu. Alliance Sovereign, the Heavens Mansion has sent a letter of challenge, said the guard respectfully. Zhao Liusu took the letter puzzled. Why would they send a letter of challenge at this time? Ningchen walked back from the map and calmly asked, What is it? A letter of challenge from the Sword Sovereign of the Heavens Mansion, said Zhao Liusu gravely. Oh. Ningchen took the letter and glanced at it. His eyes narrowed slightly. Could it be that they couldn't wait? Or did they have other plans? Send the letter of challenge to the Sunset Divine City. Ningchen waved his hand and sent the letter back. Yes. The guard respectfully accepted the order and left the hall. Alliance Sovereign, Military Advisor. This battle is extremely likely to be targeted at the Alcade King. We have to be on guard, reminded Xianjun solemnly. In the Alliance army, only the Alcade King had peak battle strength. But in the Heavens Mansion camp, apart from the Sword Sovereign, there was still an unknown expert. If they took advantage of this opportunity to attack, even the Alcade King wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. I understand your worries, but this battle can't be avoided. Zhao Liusu sighed softly. The Sword Sovereign's letter of challenge couldn't be rejected by the Alcade King. This day had already arrived when the battle between the two realms had begun. Military Advisor, do you have any ideas? Asked Zhao Liusu. Send someone to invite the Tai Bai Prefecture Lord, Dean Bai Lu, and the Venerable Bodhi, said Ningchen after thinking for a moment. The Venerable Bodhi and the Tai Bai Prefecture Lord are both injured. I'm afraid they won't be able to stop that expert, said Zhao Liusu worriedly. It's fine. Although the two of them are injured and aren't at their peak, they were once peak experts. They have experience fighting peak experts. With Dean Bai Lu's help, even if they can't stop him, they'll be able to delay him for a while. In addition, the Sword Sovereign and the Alcade King's battle will be held in the Windless Plains. It's about the same distance as Competitive City and Eternal City, so it's considered fair. However, you must pay attention to the sovereigns of the Heavens Mansion at all times. As for the people in Competitive City, it'll still be the Alliance Sovereign and Venerable Lishan. With the two of them, even if the Heavens Mansion attacks, they'll be able to hold on until the sovereigns return, said Ningchen. Advisor, how about we use this chance to attack Eternal City? Suggested Venerable Lishan. That's impossible. That celestial minister won't leave Eternal City so easily, especially at such a crucial time. Although he's only fought once, it's clear that his attainments and formations are extraordinary. In this battle, we're being tied down by too many sovereigns. It's hard for us to split our attention. It's almost impossible for us to attack Eternal City, said Ningchen. Advisor, have you ever thought about what would happen if that expert didn't interfere, and the Alcade King lost in a fair battle? Asked Zhao Liusu. I can only say that you'd best pray that such an outcome doesn't occur. Otherwise, the chances of the Heavens Mansion winning this battle will be over 70%. Even if the Central Plains is lucky enough to win, it'll be an extremely bitter victory, said Ningchen calmly. Everyone fell silent. Without a doubt, that was an outcome they didn't want to see. A messenger appeared in Eternal City, delivering a letter. In front of the chessboard, Xiao Bieli stopped playing chess. Glancing at the reply from Peak Competition City, he destroyed the letter and continued playing chess. On the chessboard, black pieces and white pieces crisscrossed. It was impossible to see who had the advantage. However, there was killing intent everywhere. With each step, people could deeply sense the difficulty of placing a piece. Celestial Minister. Wuxia appeared and bowed. Sword Sovereign, remember. You can only win this battle. You can't lose. Shall Liby said the last word. Understood. Wuxia nodded. On the chessboard, a large dragon was formed. The finishing piece was the finishing piece. In the end, the deciding factor of victory or defeat was still absolute martial strength. Even the wisest person would make a mistake. Even the wisest person wouldn't be able to plan every step of the way. The existence of absolute martial strength could simplify the battle to the greatest extent, making up for the inadequacies of scheming. The wisest person helped the situation. The wisest person helped the situation. The Celestial Minister was the true decision-maker of the Heaven's Mansion. For the sake of the general situation, he would create a killing trap. Chapter 567. In Sunset Divine City, the sword god was nurturing his sword. His battle intent had reached the peak of his life. This battle might be the last battle of his life, and he didn't want to have any regrets. Senior Alcade. Hongyi appeared in the city and bowed respectfully. Ningchen, no matter what the result of tomorrow's battle is, don't let anyone interfere, said the Alcade King. Ningchen frowned and said, Senior, how confident are you in winning this battle? 40%. After wasting 100 years, his sword wasn't as sharp as it had been 100 years ago. Compared to him, the Heavenly Mansion Sword Sovereign was at his peak. His chances of victory were less than 50%. I need a victory. Or perhaps the Central Plains sects need a victory. Senior Alcade, you can't lose this battle, said Ningchen. I will do my best, said the Alcade King. The Heavenly Mansion's Fan Xinghong requests an audience with the Central Plains Sword God. At this moment, a cold voice rang out from outside Sunset Divine City, interrupting their conversation. Come in, said the Alcade King. Many thanks. As he spoke, a stream of light flashed past and a black-clothed young girl arrived. In the blink of an eye, she was already in their line of sight. May I ask why you've come? Asked the Alcade King. I'm here on behalf of the Heavenly Minister to gift you a sword. Fan Xinghong pulled out the silk in her hand, causing an ancient sword that glowed with piercingly cold light to fly out and descend onto the divine Tao altar with a clang. This is the Separation Sword. It's the only divine weapon in the Heavenly Mansion that can rival the Heavenly Tower. The Sword Sovereign wanted a fair battle, so he asked the Heavenly Minister to give it to you, said Fan Xinghong softly. The Alcade King looked at the sword in front of him and didn't refuse. He calmly said, When you return, please thank the Heavenly Minister and the Sword Sovereign for me. I accept this sword. My realm has already shown enough sincerity. I hope your realm can follow the agreement and treat this battle fairly, said Fan Xinghong seriously. Don't worry. I've already warned that no one is allowed to interfere, said the Alcade King. There's no need to doubt the Alcade King's reputation. However, at this point Fan Xinghong changed the topic. She looked at the red-clothed young man and sneered. It's hard to believe the credibility of some people. When Ningchen heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up as he said, Miss Fan, when you say someone, are you referring to me? Mr. Bai, or should I say, Marquis Jiming, do you think your reputation is trustworthy? Fan Xinghong asked indifferently. Hey Miss Fan, you must have misunderstood me. Knowing Destiny has always been a man of his word. Everyone in the world knows that. Ningchen smiled. Master Bai, the thickness of your skin is even more impressive than your swordsmanship, mocked Fan Xinghong. You're overpraising me, Ningchen said indifferently. Fan Xinghong snorted coldly. She looked at the man on the divine altar and said, Alcade King, I'm sure you don't want this battle to be ruined by someone's scheme. I have a suggestion that I hope you'll consider. Please speak, the Alcade King said. From now until the end of the battle tomorrow, I'll follow the Jiming Marquis and prevent anyone from using schemes to ruin this fair battle. The Alcade King looked at the red-clothed young man and said, Ningchen, you can decide this yourself. Fan Xinghong also looked at him and said indifferently, Jiming Marquis, if you don't have any ulterior motives, you shouldn't have any reason to refuse this suggestion. My strength is far inferior to yours, so I can't pose any threat to you. After tomorrow's battle, I will naturally leave. Of course, you can also refuse, but your existence is the variable that my realm is most worried about. If your realm can't guarantee that tomorrow's battle will be fair, then my realm won't make any more promises. Ningchen glanced at the all-Kate king on the god's altar. A moment later, his gaze shifted to the black-clothed young girl beside him. He smiled faintly and said, Lady Fan is truly eloquent. I have no objections to your conditions, but I'm afraid you'll be wronged. It's just one day. I can still endure such a small grievance, said Fan Xinghong coldly. Then I'll have to ask Miss Fan to leave with me. Ningchen smiled. Soon after, he bowed towards all-Kate king on the divine altar and said, All-Kate king, this junior will take his leave first. The all-Kate king nodded. Ningchen turned, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. He didn't stay any longer and directly walked away. The two of them left. The all-Kate king sighed softly and closed his eyes once more, preparing for battle. The sun rose and set. Night and day flew by. The day of the battle was approaching. Both realms were nervous. On the windless plains, the black-clothed man stood still. A sword stood in the sand. His divine weapon, Heavenly Tower, hadn't been unsheathed, but its sword pressure swept out in all directions. Footsteps rang out from the north. White robes fluttered in the wind, and sword intent spread. The central plains sword god of 100 years had come. There was only one sword in the world. Kings would never meet another king. Today the peak had appeared together. Heaven and earth mourned. Mu Chang'e, Ji Yaoguang. Please. Without any greetings, the Heavenly Tower and Separation sword were unsheathed at the same time. In an instant, the windless plains was filled with wind and sand. Sword 2 Jadefall. Mu Chang'e was the first to attack. An aura of death spread out from the Heavenly Tower. With a slash of his sword, the void for 5 miles shattered. The all-Kate king didn't dodge. He blocked the Jadefall. With a loud bang, sword chi scattered everywhere. Both sides were as still as mountains. Only the dust and sand were sent flying, indicating that this battle was different from the past. Using a probing move against an enemy is disrespectful behavior, said the all-Kate king indifferently. It was Mu Chang'e who was disrespectful. Sword 5. Fuha. Mu Chang'e formed a sword with his fingers. The Heavenly Tower trembled. The Yellow Springs had no way out. Crossing the bridge of helplessness, the peak of the sword had appeared once more in the world. In an instant, sword intent swept through the world. Dark clouds covered the horizon and thunder shook the heavens. Sword tribulation limitless. The limitless king's might was world-shaking. The all-Kate king stepped forward, and a huge sword wheel appeared. Limitless sword light tore through the air, meeting the incoming attack. With a loud explosion, the peak of the sword techniques violently collided. The windless plains rapidly collapsed. Sand filled the sky and waves of dust spread out. Sword 7. Extreme Heaven. Before the waves of dust had even dissipated, Mu Chang'e's sword soared into the sky. His sword intent soared as he once again used one of Sword Sovereign's famous moves. The Heavenly Tower left his hand. The sand in the sky was drawn towards it and soared into the sky. Immediately, swords began to condense, forming a sky of swords. The all-Kate king narrowed his eyes. He clenched his hand, and the Heavenly Tower returned to his hand. Sword tribulation limitless. The sword tribulation appeared once more. Sword light soared from the ground like rain, shaking the heavens. Sword after sword collided in the world, rumbling and howling. Sword 8, Emperor's Sword. The Sword 7 appeared. Mu Chang'e once again grasped the Heavenly Tower. With a shout, he condensed the sword intent that filled the windless plains. The Emperor's Sword that had never appeared before appeared. The sword intent that filled the world rapidly converged in all directions. The Emperor's Sword caused all the swords in the world to submit. The all-Kate king had never seen such a sword before. His vital energy soared, and the wind and clouds swirled around his sword. The endless sword met the sword. In the next moment, the two extremely brilliant sword lights collided in the mortal world. After a short moment of silence, there was a great tremor, as if the sky was collapsing, and the earth was caving in. The sword might that the windless plains could not bear dissipated for no reason. With a groan, the sword light pierced through his shoulder. His white robe was dyed red. The ultimate move had injured a king. On the other side, Muchanga landed on the ground. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Sword sovereign of the Tianfu sect, you live up to your name. Sword sovereign of the Zhongzhou state, you are disappointing. After a round of fierce confrontation, the black-robed and white-robed figures stood facing each other. Their sword intent did not dissipate. Instead, it increased. The world-shaking battle of swords shocked all the spectators. The power displayed by the two sword divinities of this era was truly terrifying. So, it turned out that the sword could reach such a high level. Although the battle between the legendary swordsman of the eastern region and the Taibai Palace Lord had also shocked the world. The difference between the two was too great. The legendary swords could not be fully used from beginning to end. The shock it brought was not as clear as today. Although it's not obvious, the Alcade King is indeed at a disadvantage, Reverend Yuxing said worriedly. The Central Plains could not bear the result of the Alcade King's defeat. This was a devastating blow. Once the Alcade King was defeated, Heaven's Sanctum Supremes, who were already slightly stronger, would have an overwhelming advantage, causing the balance of the war to be completely unbalanced. Where is the military advisor? Why don't I see him? Reverend Qingyu asked. I don't know. I haven't seen him since yesterday, Reverend Yuxing said. On the other side of the battle, 3 figures appeared. Reverend Bodhi, the Taibai Palace Lord, and Dean Bai Lu were quietly watching the battle. At the same time, they were on guard against that unknown expert from the heavenly sanctum. Are the 3 of you waiting for me? As he spoke, the void swirled, and a purple-robed man walked out. He looked at the 3 people before him, and spoke indifferently. The 3 reverends' expressions sank. As expected, this person had come. Everyone, there's no need to be nervous. I'm just here to watch the battle. Today's main characters aren't us, so there's no need to waste our energy, said the purple-robed man. Just as everyone's attention was focused on the battle in the windless plains, 300 miles to the north, the path of the life-knowing swordsman, who had come to watch the battle, was completely blocked. Space shook, and a red-robed figure silently appeared. Their faces were exactly the same, and there was no difference at all. This scheme that had been planned for so long had finally revealed its killing move. Ning Chen glanced at the vermilion bird in front of him, and then at Fan Xinghong behind him. He immediately understood everything. Reverend Tian Xiang really thinks highly of me. He spent so much effort to set this up. So it was just to take my life, said Ning Chen. If you die, no one in the 5 regions will be able to stop the heavenly sanctum, said Fan Xinghong coldly. I'm very curious how you and this vermilion bird that hasn't fully transformed will be able to kill me, said Ning Chen. You'll know soon enough. Fan Xinghong formed a hand seal, and her aura rapidly rose. In a breath, she broke through the 3 disaster realm and reached the half-step sovereign realm. A secret art? Unfortunately, it's still not enough. Ning Chen sneered. His silhouette flashed quickly. The white fan, clear sun, and Li fire appeared. Sword light soared into the sky and started the battle. Chapter 568. In the windless plain, sand was billowing. The clash of swords was getting hotter and hotter. The surging sand waves showed how intense this battle of swordsmen was. Divine weapons clashed, and sword radiance spread out. The battle between 2 kings shocked all the experts of the 2 realms. It was hard to believe that the power of humans could reach such a level. The separation and heavenly tower were 2 divine weapons that stood side by side. They were like 2 peerless swordsmen fighting. The sounds of their swords were mournful, creating the most beautiful harmony. In the battle, both of them were dyed red. They were at the same peak, but different sword wills bloomed in the sky. The spectators were mesmerized. The 2 kings stood side by side. They were the only ones on the sword. Their swords surpassed the limit and showed the power of the celestial path that was rarely seen in the world. The treading celestial path which had not appeared in thousands of years, was like a dream at this moment. It was as if it had appeared in the world. Ninth sword. The sword wills kept rising and accumulating. The ninth sword appeared, and everything became still for a moment. Then, the magnificent sword radiance rushed into the sky. The world turned into a world of swords. Divine domain. The Tianfu war god opened the divine domain on the sword. The sky was filled with thousands of swords. The most shocking sword move made the world tremble. The sword wills spread, and the human supremes retreated quickly. They could not hide the shock on their faces. The Tianfu sword venerable was the miracle of the sword world. Outside the battle, the venerables of the Tianfu war god had mixed feelings. In the past 100 years, the Tianfu Holy Land had always been a mountain that the various factions could not cross. There was no doubt that the Star Venerable, who controlled the fate of one star, was the strongest person in the Tianfu war god. However, the person who brought despair to the various factions was not the Star Venerable who rarely fought, but the Tianfu war god Muchanga. 100 years ago, when Mount Digui rebelled, the Sword Venerable took action and flattened the entire Mount Digui. Since then, the various factions have been silenced. 10 years ago, the Sword Venerable made a mistake in comprehending the sword. His soul was injured, and he fell into a coma. Only then did the various factions breathe a sigh of relief. If the existence of the Star Venerable was an illusory deterrent, then the existence of the Sword Venerable made the various factions of the Tianfu war god feel powerless. It was difficult to surpass him. In the battle, the divine domain on the sword appeared. Within 100 li, the sword light crisscrossed and crisscrossed. The void was unable to withstand the might of this extreme martial art. Piece by piece it collapsed. This shocking move caused the heaven and earth to wail unceasingly. Brilliance flashed across Alcate King's eyes. The separate gather sword in his hand shone brightly. The move of sword testimony had also appeared in the world. 8 void reincarnation, sword tribulation unruffled. The sword of oblivion, the sword of oblivion. The white-robed Alcate King stepped into the air, and his black hair instantly turned white. The century-old sword god of the Central Plains, Oblivion, proved his sword, and regretted it for the rest of his life. The most powerful sword had broken through the god realm. It cut through the sword flow, and reached the sword venerate. At the final moment of the world's most powerful sword art, the sword of Oblivion broke through the god realm. Just as the venerable sword was about to be defeated, the scattered sword light suddenly flew back and condensed into one. 10th sword Ju Xian. A sword that had never been seen in the mortal world appeared at this moment. A terrifying sword pressure spread out, and the sandstorm in the sky disappeared immediately. The windless plain sank more than 100 feet. The two extremes on the sword collided with a loud bang. The 9 heavens trembled, and lightning flashed across the void, illuminating the dim world. In the shocking aftermath, 2 figures flew out, covered in red, and landed on the ground. The tips of their swords pierced the ground and stopped. In the situation of a draw, only blood splashed and dyed the surrounding ground red. The most powerful battle was about to end with the final bell. Venerable sword, that's enough. The plan has succeeded. Stop. At this moment, outside the battle, a man in purple appeared in a flash and said calmly, "I can't stop." A faint light flashed in Muchanga's eyes. Then his blood origin suddenly burst out. The final sword intent broke through the restraints of his physical body and rushed to the 9 heavens. Sword. 11. 300 miles north of the windless plain, Red Sparrow and Fan Xinghong had trapped and killed the knowing destiny state cultivators. Ningchen attacked first. He used the clear sunly fire as a sword and rushed toward Fan Xinghong. The vermilion bird moved. Its red feathers gathered and turned into a blood-red sword. It swung the sword and blocked the fire-white fan. Sword light surged. The 2 people who were like mirror images started fighting again. Every move came from the same source, but they were also different. At the same time, Fan Xinghong stomped her foot and moved her blade. The extremely fast blade swept past like a willow in the wind. It was hard to distinguish. The blade, sword, and fan clashed. With a bang, the aftermath spread, and the 3 of them took half a step back. Ningchen knew that his body couldn't be stabilized. so he didn't want to continue fighting. He stepped on the water and retreated. You want to leave? Don't even think about it. Red Sparrow's figure flashed. She turned her sword and blocked the water. Every move was like a prophet. After 3 moves, Ning Chun felt the pressure on his body double. He was restrained everywhere when he used his moves. Knowing destiny, Marquis, you won't be able to escape today. Fan Xinghong pressed forward again. Her willow blade cut through the soul and pressed forward. The blade and sword worked together. Every move was fast and heavy. It was as if every move was predicted. Ning Chun was in danger. The 2 most important people in Tian Xiang's trap had both fought with Knowing Destiny Marquis before. After Tian Xiang broke through them one by one, they became Knowing Destiny Marquis, trapping the enemy and forcing him to his death. The 2 worked well together. Each move was more vicious than the last. In order to get rid of Tian Xiang's biggest problem, Fan Xinghong attacked without defending. Her moves were vicious and unavoidable. In the blink of an eye, 10 moves had passed. With a slash, the sword light brushed past Fan Xinghong's shoulder and cut through his red clothes. A strand of black hair fell down. 4th sword, River of Forgetfulness. An opportunity appeared. Fan Xinghong used her willow blade. Sword Venerable's sealed move reappeared in the killing trap. Due to the limitations of her body, it was difficult for the sealed sword to reach its full potential. However, at this critical moment, the River of Forgetfulness became a fatal move. You're going too far. At the moment of life and death, Ning Chen's eyes were cold. He no longer cared about hiding his identity. He waved his fan and pushed Vermilion Bird away. He retreated 10 feet and stepped forward. His phoenix origin and demonic aura rose rapidly. Sword style Bloody Path. With a sword style, a demonic move appeared. A bloody shadow rushed out in an instant. Its murderous aura was so dense that it was suffocating. Clear Sunsley fire was covered in blood. With a bang, the 3 weapons collided. The aftershock spread for thousands of feet. Vermilion Bird and Fan Xinghong's mouths were dyed red. Different moves and different auras turned the situation around instantly. Sword style Bloody Flame. The demonic body moved again. Each move was stronger than the last. Terrifying murderous aura condensed around his body. Endless bloody flames rushed from the ground into the sky. In the next moment, Fan Xinghong's red clothes flashed and the bloody flames burned the sky. Both of them focused and held their weapons together to block the demonic move. However, blood spurted out. Unable to withstand the demonic move's power, the 2 of them were sent flying again. Retreat! Vermilion Bird didn't want to fight anymore. She shouted and used her talent to quickly retreat from the battle. He's gone. You can stay behind. Ning Chen's murderous aura had already risen. A scarlet light flashed in his eyes. He rushed forward and arrived in front of the young girl. His white fan surged with bloody light. Fan Xinghong blocked with her saber. Her mouth was dyed red again. However, even though she was injured, her saber didn't stop at all. It streaked across the sky and once again pressed forward. Ning Chen snorted coldly. He opened his white fan and blocked the saber light in front of his chest. Then, he used his sword fingers to break through Fan Xinghong's chi. Fan Xinghong didn't dodge at all. Instead, she took the attack head-on. The willow saber in her hand changed hands, and once again pierced towards the person in front of her. Do you think it's that easy? Ning Chen leaned to the side. The moment they passed, he condensed Yuan in his left hand and used all his strength to strike the young girl's chest. With a muffled groan, his palm broke her heart. In an instant, blood filled the sky and dyed the wasteland red. Fan Xinghong was sent flying dozens of feet away. The moment she landed, she used the momentum to quickly leave. Looking at the disappearing figure, the murderous aura in Ning Chen's eyes gradually disappeared. What a celestial minister! If the phoenix body really was here today, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed. Within Eternal Heaven City, Xiao Libi was sitting in front of a chessboard. However, the piece in his hand had yet to be placed. His heart was filled with worry, and his heart was in chaos. He was unable to calmly make his plans like before. Celestial Minister! Just at this moment, a black light flashed and Fan Xinghong appeared. 2 steps later, she fell to the ground. She was no longer able to hold her saber. Xinghong. Xiao Libi's pupils constricted. He quickly rushed forward and knelt down to help her up. I am sorry. I failed. Fan Xinghong vomited a mouthful of blood from within the celestial minister's embrace. Her spiritual sense was gradually fading as she weakly spoke. Didn't we agree that within 10 moves, you would immediately withdraw? Xiao Libi's heart was filled with pain. He is a great enemy of the celestial minister. I don't want him to live. Blood flowed from Fan Xinghong's mouth. I understand. You're too foolish. Your meridians have been destroyed, and I'm unable to save you, said Xiao Bieli. Enough, Minister of Heaven. I came back to remind you that Marquis Jiming'an, Tianfu Star sure, may not be the same. Before he could finish speaking, his arms fell to his sides. Before he could finish speaking, he disappeared with the wind. Xinghong. Xiao Bieli's body trembled, and the pain made it difficult for him to breathe. The title of Marquis, the position of Prime Minister, the position of supremacy in the world, at this moment, seemed so pale and useless. That night, it was raining heavily. The little girl, who was only 5 or 6 years old, had nowhere to go. Her little clothes were tattered, and she fainted in front of the Prime Minister's residence. That night, he saved the little girl and took care of her day and night. In the end, he saved the little girl's life. From that day onwards, the little girl stayed by his side. They helped each other in times of need. For more than 20 years, they never left each other. After 20 years of ups and downs, the little girl had slowly grown up. Accompanying her had already become a habit. He had never thought that the little girl who had always been by his side would one day leave his side. The heavens were merciless. They used a game of chess to determine the fate of the chess piece. Victory and defeat were commonplace in the game of chess. However, the black and white pieces of chess had a short life. Who could they talk to? The falling leaves in the sky fell onto the chessboard. A single piece moved gently. It was as if the falling leaves were talking about their short lives. Not far away, the sleeping girl was so quiet. This time, it was impossible for her to wake up again. Heavens, Minister of Heaven. So the person you treasured is also on your chessboard. Haha. A bitter laugh echoed through the cold wind. A figure slowly stood up. It was impossible to see his expression. Holding the sleeping girl, he walked east step by step. Chapter 569. In the windless plains, the master of the Pill Tower, Celestial Venerable Ling, appeared to stop the battle. However, how could the battle of the king's sword be stopped so easily? Sword. 11. With the 11th sword, blood spurted out from Muchunga's body like mist. Cracks appeared on the heavenly hearing tower. Before the move was unleashed, boundless sword pressure engulfed the entire windless plains. Comprehending the sword in a day, 3 souls were damaged. Sleeping for 10 years, the sword that couldn't be tolerated in the mortal world finally appeared today. The sword's extremity was limitless. The soaring sword will shook the heavens and earth within 100 miles. A shocking sword move. Around Muchunga, a waterfall of sword light surged and roared. It was magnificent and boundless, a perfect move that exhausted all human strength. In this battle of the pinnacle swordsman, it transcended the limits and appeared in the mortal world. In an instant, the windless plains that was ravaged by the battle quickly collapsed. Large areas of land collapsed, and the shocking aftershocks continued to spread in all directions. Celestial Venerable Ling saw this, and her expression changed. She quickly retreated and left the battle. 100 miles away, the expressions of the human sovereigns also changed. They didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly retreated. Alcade Sr. At this moment, a red shadow flashed past. Ning Chun, who had just escaped from the killing trap, rushed over and saw a shocking scene. Ning Chun, from today onwards, the future of the central state is in your hands. In the battle, Alcade King looked back and softly instructed. He then stepped into the air, and the separate gather sword hummed softly before turning into dust and dissipating. Immortality is useless. Immortality is foolish, sword calamity soul burial. Amidst the sound of dust waves, a soul-stirring sword. The king's form dissipated, and the three souls transformed into swords. It was born out of the corporeal body, and surpassed the limits of the mortal world, slashing open the path to immortality. The two extremes that stood side by side, and the final sword that abandoned everything broke into the realm of immortality at the same time. They were like the two most dazzling divine suns in the world. Endless brilliance could be seen clearly for thousands of miles. In the next moment, the two extremes collided and shook violently. The aftershocks swept hundreds of miles, and the entire windless plains was instantly destroyed, becoming history. At the edge of the battle, the spectators were all affected and were sent flying. The blood around them churned violently. Alcate Sr. Outside the aftershocks, Ningchen barely stabilized his body. He took a step and rushed towards the center of the battle. At the same time, the human sovereigns also reacted. Their figures flashed as they rushed toward the battlefield. After the great battle, not a single part of the windless plains was left intact. On the sunken ground, there were intersecting huge gullies that were so deep that the bottom could not be seen. The shocking battle caused everyone present to feel fear in their hearts. Senior Ningchen rushed into the battlefield and looked around for traces of the Alcate King. However, all he could see was a mess, and he couldn't see anyone else. At this moment, a black-robed figure fell from the sky and crashed onto the ground. His body was covered in blood, and there was no trace of life in him. Sword Venerable, Celestial Venerable Ling appeared and took a step forward to Muchanga. She flipped her palm, and her expression immediately changed. At the same time, the Grand White Mansion Lord, Venerable Bodhi, and Dean Bailu appeared and surrounded him. Jiming Marquis, the battle is over. Do you still want to increase the casualties? Celestial Venerable Ling ignored the three people around her and looked at the red-clothed youth not far away. Let him go. Ning Chen's eyes flashed with coldness as he spoke. Upon hearing this, the three venerables opened up a path and didn't stop him. A rational decision, Celestial Venerable Ling said, and left with Muchanga in a flash. Military advisor, Venerable Xianzhen, and the rest also appeared in the battlefield and spoke with solemn expressions. Return to Competitive Edge City. Ningchen ordered and didn't stay any longer. He turned and left. The venerables accepted the order and followed silently. No one expected this result. In this battle, both the Heaven's Mansion and the Inner Realm suffered heavy losses. There was no winner. Sword Venerable's 11th sword was no longer a move of the mortal world. Alcate King also used his life to execute a move that surpassed the limits of the mortal world. In the end, the battle between the two was still undecided. In Competitive Edge City, in the Hall of Venerables, Zhao Liusu and Venerable Li Shan were anxious as they waited for the outcome of the battle. The dazzling sword light, just now could be clearly seen from thousands of miles away in Competitive Edge City. No one could have predicted the result of this battle. Military advisor, seeing the red-clothed youth appear, Zhao Liusu immediately went forward and asked, "What's the result?" "The entire army of the Heavenly Prefecture will be here soon. Alliance Venerable should prepare for battle as soon as possible." Ningchen spoke in an indifferent tone before leaving the hall. Behind him, Venerable Xianzhen and the rest made way for the military advisor. No one dared to stop him. What happened? Zhao Liusu felt that the atmosphere wasn't right and asked solemnly. Alcate King died in battle, and Sword Venerable's fate is unknown. However, even if he survives, he's crippled. Venerable Xianzhen sighed softly. Zhao Liusu heard this and trembled. How could this be? Alliance Venerable, now's not the time to be sad. What the military advisor said just now is the most important thing. Venerable Li Shan walked forward and reminded him seriously. Zhao Liusu nodded and suppressed the heaviness in his heart. Pass down the order, prepare for battle. Yes. The venerables received the order and replied respectfully. In Eternal Heaven City, purple light gathered, and Celestial Venerable Ling appeared. She carried Muchanga, whose soul had been damaged. The once famous Sword Venerable had all his meridians shattered, and he was now a cripple that was neither alive nor dead. Her consciousness swept over, and Celestial Venerable Ling's eyes focused. She rushed out and headed 100 miles to the east. Outside Eternal Heaven City, under a red maple tree, Heaven Minister stood silently. In front of him was a lonely new grave covered with falling red leaves. Heaven Minister. Celestial Venerable Ling walked out and said. Xiao Bieli turned his head and saw the figure in her arms. His body trembled violently. Chang'e. 2 steps forward, Xiao Bieli's raised hand trembled. In a day, the successive blows made the usually calm minister of Heavenly Manor unable to hide the pain in his heart. Sword Venerable used the 11th sword, and I couldn't stop him. Celestial Venerable Ling blamed herself. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. Xiao Bieli's hands cracked as he clenched them. He was filled with regret. Why? Heaven Minister, Alcade King has fallen, and Central Prefecture's last hope is gone. Why don't we take this opportunity to attack and wipe out the allied forces? Celestial Venerable Ling said solemnly. Xiao Bieli looked at the unconscious Mu Chang'e and was speechless. After a long time he said slowly, go. Yes. Celestial Venerable Ling respectfully accepted the order. Half a day later, the entire army of Heavenly Manor marched north. Their vast aura covered the sky. With the strength of a realm, and the help of human sovereigns, they were unstoppable. They broke through the Allied forces' defense line like a hot knife through butter. City after city, fortress after fortress, the army of Heavenly Manor continued to march north. Their attacks were endless and abnormally ferocious. Central Prefecture was in danger. The various sects were terrified and immediately sent out strong practitioners to reinforce the front lines. However, it was too late. In less than half a month, Central Prefecture's allied forces were defeated again and again, losing dozens of cities. Competition City, Hall of Venerables. An oppressive atmosphere spread. Human sovereigns were silent. They felt deep despair and helplessness for Central Prefecture's fate. Beside the main seat, Red Shirt was in deep thought. Zhao Liusu wanted to say something but stopped. The anxiety on his face was difficult to hide. From the beginning of the war until now, every word he said had become reality. Alcade King died in battle, and Central Prefecture was completely defeated. It would be difficult for them to fight against Heavenly Manor's army. Beneath the main seat, Reverend Li Shan finally couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and asked, Advisor, is the defeat really irreversible? Beside the main seat, Ning Chen came back to his senses. He looked at the sovereigns below and said calmly, Yes, peace talks. Hearing this, the sovereigns were stunned. Peace talks? How was that possible? Advisor, the conditions that Heavenly Manor gave before were already too much. Now that they have the absolute advantage, they'll definitely go from bad to worse, Zhao Liusu said in confusion. The conditions won't go too far, but it'll be hard for people to accept. If we want to reverse the situation, this peace talks are necessary. Ning Chen stood up and said indifferently. He then walked out of the hall. Alliance Sovereign, please arrange for the peace talks between Heavenly Minister and Central Prefecture as soon as possible. As for who will negotiate, it's not important. His last words kept echoing in the hall. Everyone looked at each other. No one understood what the military advisor was trying to do. Alliance Sovereign, Reverend Xianjin stood up and said, There's no need to say any more. Do as the advisor says. Zhao Liusu raised her hand to stop him from continuing. Yes. The Xianjin sovereign helplessly sighed and bowed. In Tianheng City, the Central Prefecture's peace talks letter was delivered. Dong Sun, Zhenyang, Taixian, and the other sovereigns looked at the Heavenly Minister in front of them, waiting for his reply. If they could take over Central Prefecture without shedding a drop of blood, that would be the best choice. Although the Heavenly Manor had the advantage, they had also suffered great losses. Furthermore, the time left for them was decreasing. The Heavenly Manor's destruction was right in front of them. The sooner they ended the war, the more people they could save. 3 days from now, in Tianluo City, we'll negotiate, said Xiao Bieli coldly. Dong Sun, Zhenyang and Taixian bowed deeply. They knew that it wasn't easy for the Heavenly Minister to give up on his personal feelings and agree to negotiate. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In Tianluo City, human sovereigns appeared one after another at the front lines of the two armies. They were all here to negotiate. In order to show their sincerity, Zhao Liusu personally came. On the Heavenly Manor's side, the Heavenly Minister also appeared in Tianluo City to negotiate. Where's the Jiming Marquis? Why isn't he here? Asked Xiao Bieli as he glanced at the various representatives of the Central Prefecture. The final decision is still in our hands, so it's more appropriate for us to directly negotiate, said Zhao Liusu. You, Xiao Bieli sneered. Do we have the right to do that? The Xianzhen sovereign was infuriated. He suddenly sat up, but Zhao Liusu glared at him. We came with sincerity. The Heavenly Minister's overbearing words will only make it difficult to negotiate, said Zhao Liusu. The Jiming Marquis hasn't arrived, so I don't want to waste words. Our conditions are still the same as before. The various powers will withdraw from the Central Prefecture, and the Heavenly Manor will promise not to invade the other 4 regions. Otherwise, the day the Central Prefecture's war ends will be the day the flames of war ignites in the next region, said Xiao Bieli coldly. Bailey, Reverend Li Shan, and the others' expressions sank. Such conditions clearly meant that they didn't want to negotiate. Chapter 570. 1,000 miles north of Heaven Luo City, at Wanqing Pass, Ningchen walked over while holding Yiner's hand. Qingning followed beside them, not knowing why they had come here. Yiner. Ningchen handed a bunch of flower seeds to the little girl. Plant these seeds well. Once you're done, come ask me for more. Okay. Yiner obediently answered. She ran to the side with the flower seeds, and began to plant them one by one. This is? Qingning looked at the flower seeds that the little girl had dropped. There seemed to be something wrong with the devil's snare flower seeds. This is a devilized devil's snare flower seed I obtained in the Devil Wheel Sea. The flowers it blossoms are extremely poisonous, and it's hard to resist. Ningchen picked up the flower seeds and explained. You don't plan on negotiating? Qingning quickly reacted and narrowed her eyes. Negotiations require equal rights to speak. Otherwise, it'll just be one-sided bullying, said Ningchen calmly. The current Central Plains didn't have that right, so this negotiation wouldn't have any effect. Your target is the Heavenly Mansion's army? Asked Qingning. No, the Heavenly Mansion's army isn't the key to this war. The true deciding factor is the 2 realms' human supremes, said Ningchen as he buried the flower seeds. Can the devil's snare flower's poison affect supremes? Asked Qingning. No, but it can draw the Heavenly Mansion's human supremes here, said Ningchen. So what if they draw them here? The Alliance's current supremes aren't enough to keep the Heavenly Mansion's human supremes here, frowned Qingning. I don't expect them to be of any use. Ever since they retreated in front of Heaven Eternal City, I no longer trusted them. Ningchen straightened his body and smiled. Speak properly. Why are you still pretending in front of me? Scolded Qingning. When Ningchen heard this, the smile on his face disappeared, and he said, The Phoenix physique left me something before she left. It just so happens that I can use it here. Sister Qingning will know about it soon. I'm done planting them. At this moment Yiner jogged over, stretched out her fair and tender little hand, and laughed happily. Ningchen smiled and placed another bunch of flower seeds in her hand. Yiner is amazing. I still have a lot more. I'll try to plant them all today. All right. Yiner nodded, then turned around and ran away, continuing to work. You've already killed too many people. If possible, try to avoid killing as much as possible. Qingning sighed. Don't worry, Sister Qingning. I know what to do, Ningchen replied. At the same time, in Tianluo City, the negotiations between the 2 realms had reached an impasse. The conditions offered by Tianxiang were difficult for the venerables of the central state to accept. For thousands of years, the foundation of the various sects had been in the central state. How could they give it up? Celestial Minister. The Heavenly Sanctum's goal in invading the inner realm is to plunder resources. There is no need to be so overbearing when it comes to territory and territory, said Venerable Li. The Heavenly Abode wants resources, but the Heavenly Abode won't give up territory. Xiao Bieli slowly said. Zhao Liusu's eyes darkened as she said, Heaven Minister's attitude is that he doesn't want to negotiate at all. Peace talks. You were the ones who suggested it. My realm merely stated the conditions for withdrawing, said Xiao Bieli coldly. It's a matter of resources. Zhongzhou will try our best to satisfy your demands. However, no matter what, the various sects may withdraw from Zhongzhou. This is our bottom line, said Zhao Liusu. If that's the case, then we'll meet on the battlefield. Xiao Bieli wasn't moved at all. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere became abnormally heavy. The negotiations that were about to continue caused all the venerables present to be on full alert. Celestial Minister, please wait for a day. I need to discuss your conditions with the military advisor first before making a decision, said Zhao Liusu gravely. At this time tomorrow, I'll be waiting for your reply. Xiao Bieli stood up and spoke indifferently, and then he strode off. The venerables of the heavenly sanctum followed closely behind him. Within the peace discussion hall, the venerables of the alliance fell silent. Without a doubt, this negotiation had failed. Venerable Li, go invite the military advisor, said Zhao Liusu. Yes. Venerable Li stood up and accepted the order. In Wanqing Pass, the sky gradually darkened. Yiner's 3 minutes of labor had long since disappeared. She was sleeping soundly in Qing Ning's embrace. Not far away, Ning Chun was carefully burying the mandala flower seeds one by one. By the time he finished planting all the seeds, the sky had already turned completely dark. Above the 9 heavens, the moon shone brightly, sprinkling down a faint chill. Ning Chun stood in the wilderness, and with a flip of his hand, a waterfall of spring water surged out. It sprinkled down like rain, perfectly watering every piece of land. In the next moment, a strange scene occurred. Mandala flowers grew one after another, and black flowers bloomed. It was extremely beautiful. Yiner woke up in a daze. Seeing the flowers growing around her, her eyes lit up. She slid down from Qing Ning's embrace and ran forward, reaching out to touch them. Seeing this, Ning Chun stepped forward and picked her up. He said softly, "There's poison. If you touch them, you'll get worms." When Yiner heard this, she hurriedly retracted her hand. Her delicate little face was filled with fear. "Let's go to Tianluo City," said Ning Chun as he glanced at Qing Ning. "Okay." Qing Ning nodded and followed behind. In Tianluo City, in the Alliance camp, Venerable Li returned and anxiously said, "Alliance Venerable, the military advisor isn't in competitive Peak City." Hearing this, Zhao Liusu's expression froze. She suddenly stood up and said, "The military advisor didn't leave any message?" "No." Venerable Li shook his head. "Send someone to look for him," Zhao Liusu said. "There's no need to look for him." At this moment, Hong Yi appeared outside the main hall and walked into the hall step by step. "Military advisor," Venerable Li bowed. "Venerable Li, you can leave first. I have something to discuss with the Alliance Venerable," Ning Chun said calmly. "Yes." Venerable Li accepted the order and immediately turned to leave the main hall. "Military advisor, where did you go?" Zhao Liusu walked down from the main seat and asked in confusion. "Wanqing Pass," Ning Chun said honestly. "Why did you go there?" Zhao Liusu frowned and asked. "To prepare for a rainy day, or rather, to add some variables to this war. I'll explain this to the Alliance Venerable in the future. How's the peace talk going?" Ning Chun said. Zhao Liusu shook her head and sighed. "There's no room for peace talks at all. The conditions set by the Minister of Heaven are not something that the sects in Zhongzhou can accept." "The sects will give up the entire Zhongzhou?" Ning Chun asked. "Yes." Zhao Liusu nodded. "Even resources won't work?" Ning Chun asked once more. "Yes." Zhao Liusu nodded once more. "Strange." Ning Chun's eyes flashed. There were only 2 goals in war: territory and resources. But the Heavenly Palace planet was very far from the inner realm. Compared to territory, resources seemed to be more important. In their 2 talks, the Minister of Heaven had refused to give up on the matter of territory. It was truly strange. "Military advisor, tomorrow is the final deadline. Do you have any ideas?" Zhao Liusu's expression was grave. "Peace talks absolutely won't allow the Heavenly Palace planet to give up. This war will continue. Other than to draw the Heavenly Palace planet's attention, my other goal is to test the Minister of Heaven's bottom line," said Ning Chun calmly. Zhao Liusu narrowed her eyes. Then what about tomorrow's negotiations? I'll go talk. Alliance Venerable can go back and arrange for the sects to continue preparing for war. In addition, before the war reaches Wanqing Pass, we'll fight to the death, said Ning Chen. Zhao Liusu was silent for a long time. Finally she said, Military advisor, can you tell me the truth? In your heart, do you really think the Central Plains has a chance of winning this war? Ning Chen smiled. Alliance Venerable, there's a saying. If you use someone, don't doubt them. If you doubt them, don't use them. Since I've accepted the position of military advisor, I'll think of a way for the Central Plains to win this war. I'm not so bored as to waste my time fighting a war I'm sure we'll lose. With military advisor's words, I'm relieved. I'll go back as soon as possible. As for the peace talks, I'll leave them to you, said Zhao Liusu. Don't worry. Ning Chen nodded. At the agreed time in the peace discussion hall, both sides arrived. Xiao Bieli looked at the red-robed youth in front of him. Killing intent flashed across his face, and he icily said, Greeting Marquis, you still came. The Minister of Heaven's unyielding attitude forced Greeting Marquis to come. Ning Chen smiled. I'm very curious. Now that things have reached this point, do you really think peace talks can solve this problem? Sneered Xiao Bieli. If the Central Plains sects want peace talks, then the Heavenly Sanctum sects should want peace talks as well. Similarly, Greeting Marquis also hopes to resolve this war peacefully. The only one who doesn't want to talk is the Minister of Heaven, said Ning Chen indifferently. Is that important? As long as you can satisfy my realm's conditions, I'll immediately order my troops to retreat, said Xiao Bieli coldly. The Minister of Heaven has forced the Central Plains sects into a dead end. Aren't you worried that they'll choose to destroy each other? Asked Ning Chen calmly. Even if they want to destroy each other, they need to have the strength to do so. Greeting Marquis, you should know why the Central Plains has been able to hold on until now. If it weren't for the other 4 regions and your help, the Central Plains would have long since fallen to my heavenly sanctum. However, Xiao Bieli's tone changed. Do you think the other 4 regions can provide even more assistance? Although my realm came from afar and can't take down the entire inner realm, it's more than enough to take down 2 regions. No one would complain about having more resources and territory. Don't you think so? The Minister of Heaven's words are correct. However, the Heavenly Sanctum probably doesn't have the time. How long do you think the Minister of Heaven thinks the Central Plains sects can delay the war if Greeting Marquis does its best? Smiled Ning Chen. Xiao Bieli's eyes turned cold. Greeting Marquis, being too smart isn't necessarily a good thing. If you really do that, then once the Heavenly Sanctum takes over the Central Plains, their next target will be the Eastern region. What an unpleasant conversation. Ning Chen's expression also turned cold. He stood up and said, Since we can't come to an agreement, then let's fight it out on the battlefield. Minister of Heaven, Greeting Marquis will be waiting for you to take the initiative to propose peace talks. That day will never come, said Xiao Bieli coldly. Nothing is absolute. Minister of Heaven, let's meet again on the battlefield. Ning Chen stood up and smiled. He took Yiner's hand and left. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.